Chapter 25-28. Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows and did not catch her muttering. What? There's a woman chasing after our car. Yunshursher then added, it's really strange. I don't know if she's mistaken me for someone else. Hearing this, Mu Yaja looked in the rearview mirror, too. The woman was nowhere to be seen. There's no one. It can't be. I saw her chasing after us just now. Yunshursher looked at the rearview mirror curiously, but the woman was nowhere to be seen. Maybe she's not chasing after us. As she spoke, she gently rested her head on his shoulder. The car sped away at lightning speed. Miss, are you okay? On the road, the brown-haired woman lay on the ground and looked at the back view of the car. She bit her lip and hit the ground hard. She was a little angry. Coincidentally, she was wearing high heels today. Running all the way here, she sprained her ankle in a panic. She fell heavily on the ground. She panicked and wanted to chase after the car, but it was already far away. She only remembered the car plate number. She propped herself up slowly and stood up slightly. There was a graze on her knee and a layer of skin on her heel had been scraped off by the edge of her high heels. The police officer ran up and helped her up. Are you okay? I'm fine. It's just a graze. As the woman spoke, she raised her head and smiled at him. Officer, can I trouble you to check a license plate number for me? The police officer looked hesitant. If it was an ordinary person who made such a request, he would definitely reject it firmly. However, the woman in front of him was the ambassador of country Z's embassy in Italy. Her father was a well-known Chinese entrepreneur in Italy and her mother was the chief diplomat of the embassy. She had a prominent background. It was not easy to reject her request. The woman smiled at him and said politely, "Thank you, officer." When the car arrived at the hotel, the bellman carried the luggage into the room. Mu Yaja and Yunshursher carried Mui Chen and Yu into the luxurious suite. The two little fellows did not wake up even when they were held in the arms of the two people. After such a long journey, they were already exhausted. Lying on the two people's shoulders, they closed their eyes and fell asleep. Mu Yaja deliberately did not wake them up. They had flown all the way from Prague to Italy. Besides the time difference, they were exhausted. Anyway, they did not have any plans for the night. Mu Yaja planned to settle the two little guys down before going to the opera with Yunshursher. Italian opera was world famous. Yunshursher had been thinking about it for a long time. As a husband, how could he not fulfill his wife's small wish? After entering the hotel, Mu Yaja carried the two little guys to the bed. During this time, Yu woke up once and struggled to get up. However, Mu Yaja saw that he was very sleepy and coaxed him back to sleep. Taking advantage of the time when the two little guys finally stopped sleeping, he made love with her again. After the romantic moment, he carried her to the shower room and served her a warm and hot bath. After she was done, Yunshursher took the hairdryer to him and said coquettishly, "Help me dry my hair." Okay. He would not reject any request that could be fulfilled. Chapter 25-29. He took the hairdryer and had just turned it on when he heard the doorbell ringing. Ding dong, ding dong. Yunshursher looked out the door in surprise and asked with a strange expression, "Who is it?" "It's probably room service." "Yeah." Mu Yaja winked at her mysteriously. "I've prepared a candlelight dinner just for you." Yunshursher was stunned for a while and said shyly, "It's so romantic." "I'll go get the door. Wait for me here." Mu Yaja hugged her and kissed her cheek before turning to leave the shower room. Yunshursher picked up the hairdryer and blew herself dry. Her heart was as sweet as honey. This man really knew how to be romantic sometimes. Time and time again, he surprised her. From the proposal to the engagement, and now to the wedding photo shoot, this originally rigid and dull man seemed to have been enlightened overnight. The romantic cells in his body seemed to have been revived, and he knew how to flirt with her occasionally. This was a huge improvement. Just as she was immersed in the romantic fantasy of a candlelight dinner, she suddenly realized that he had taken too long to open the door. Curious about the candlelight dinner, she put down the hairdryer and tiptoed out of the shower room. However, just as she walked to the entrance, she saw a scene that made her freeze. Wuxia, dressed in a black bathrobe, stood at the door with his back facing her. In front of him was a brown-haired woman who had thrown herself into his embrace. Her arms were tightly wrapped around his waist. Her fingers were long and slender, but due to the tight embrace, her knuckles had turned white. Wuxia finally came to his senses after being in a daze for a long time. He frowned and took a while to realize who the woman in his arms was. They had not seen each other for a long time, and he couldn't even call out her full name. In his hazy memory, the girl's warm and clear face floated to his mind. He couldn't help but follow his memory and silently said a name, Xianxia, Brother Zhe. The woman buried her face in his chest, and a warm current flowed down along the lines of his muscles. "I miss you so much," the woman cried emotionally. "I thought that I would never be able to see you again in this life." Hearing this, Wuxia's expression changed. Suddenly, the corners of his lips curled up, and he couldn't help but sigh dotingly. "Silly. Haven't we met?" Unshirshi's face stiffened. She didn't know how to deal with such a situation. Who was this woman? He heard her call him Brother Zhe, and he called her Xianxia. Could it be that they already knew each other? However, why did she feel that this woman's attitude towards him was somewhat unusual? Unshirshi looked at her hands that were tightly wrapped around his waist. Only when the woman raised her head and saw her familiar face did Unshirshi realize who this woman was. Isn't that the brown-haired woman from this afternoon? Because her facial features were very unique and beautiful, it was unforgettable. She had a head of brown hair that made her look pure and sweet. Her palm-sized oval face was fair, and she had on light and elegant makeup. It wasn't too bright, but it was fresh and refined. It was just right. Ah, how could she forget that this was the woman who had chased after their car? Chapter 25-30. Could it be that he saw an old friend in the car at first glance? A dinner car was parked beside the woman, and the candlelight on it was constantly swaying. It was romantic and charming. Contrasting with their backs, she felt an inexplicable discomfort in her heart. Unshirshi suddenly felt a little embarrassed. She called out softly, "Honey," Wuxia's back stiffened. He suddenly came back to his senses and gently pushed the woman away. Unshirshi noticed that his movements were gentle and soft, as if he was afraid that it would be too abrupt. It could be seen that although he was unprepared for the woman's sudden hug, he did not reject it. Her heart suddenly fell to the bottom of the valley. The doubts in her heart were infinitely magnified. He turned around and saw her. He immediately walked up to her and said in a deep voice, "Why are you out in a bathrobe? Aren't you cold? I saw you open the door for so long and didn't come in, so I was a little worried. Go in first and come out after you change." Unshirshi did not respond to him immediately. Instead, she looked at the woman at the door in confusion. "This is..." Wuxia turned around and glanced at the woman standing at the door, who looked a little uneasy. Under the woman's smiling gaze, he said softly, "An old friend." "An old friend?" "Yes, Rongxian. She immigrated to Italy when she was 12. Wuxia paused, hugged Unshirshi, and introduced her to the woman. "Xianxia, let me introduce you. This is my wife, Unshirshi. This is my wife, Unshirshi." She noticed that his tone and adjectives were intimate, gentle, and affectionate. In a way that made her jealous and envious, he introduced the unidentified woman beside him to her. "Wife? Is he married?" "Wife." She had thought that at his age, he would not be married. When Rongxian heard this unfamiliar word, she staggered slightly and almost lost the smile on her face. Her eyes, which had been full of anticipation, were now full of disappointment. She had thought that this woman was his woman. Women are different from wives. There were countless possibilities for women. They were born out of love, but they had nothing to do with love. However, the identity of his wife was different. Based on her understanding of this man, his wife represented the woman he had chosen in his long life. When she first saw the man sitting in the back seat in the afternoon, her mind went blank for a second. Before her brain could react, her body had already made a conditioned reflex action. She couldn't help but start walking and chase after the car. Wuxia, originally, she thought that this name would fade away from her life. However, in this unexpected encounter, she inadvertently saw that mature and shockingly handsome face. No matter how many years passed, it still could not wash away that handsome face that was deeply engraved in her memory. The adoration that was hidden in his heart was something that he had purposely tried not to think about and tried to forget. However, as they met again, countless burning emotions suddenly surged in his chest. That adoration was revived once again. Madness. Wuxia, this name was the most unforgettable memory of her childhood. Chapter 25-31. Using the car plate number that she had memorized, she quickly found out his whereabouts and chased him all the way to the hotel. However, she bumped into the candlelight banquet that was being delivered. The moment the waiter knocked on the door, she stood at the door. The long wait and nervousness made her feel a little helpless. She had originally thought that she would probably never see him again in this lifetime. However, this unexpected encounter made her believe that it was a fated meeting and fate. Therefore, she chased after him regardless of the consequences. With a burning passion, the moment the door opened, she pounced on him and tightly hugged his lean body that she hadn't seen in a long time, refusing to let go. "Brother Zhe." The memory of his youth, she called softly, trying to rouse his distant memory. The hand that was about to push her away suddenly froze. She knew that this man had recognized her. Oh my God! He still hadn't forgotten her. This realization made her jump with joy. However, just as happiness surged in her heart, the next second, it was completely shattered by this introduction. "This is my wife." What a formal introduction. The dream that had been surging in her heart was completely shattered because of this introduction. However, such a line was extremely in line with this man's style of doing things. He was swift and decisive, never dragging his feet. Once he had set his mind on something, he would be stubborn to the end. This man was very smart, so smart that it was unsettling. From just now, she had felt the change in this man's expression. From the initial confusion to the gradual realization, and then to the final smile and acceptance. However, vaguely, he still maintained a distance from her. This estrangement was due to his deep understanding of his current identity. He was a man with a family, a wife and children whom he loved dearly, and a blissful life. Therefore, no matter from which angle, he would always maintain a gentlemanly distance from women. At the same time, he seemed to be eager to announce Yunshirshi's identity in order to cut off the feelings that she shouldn't have for him. She sighed again. This man was too smart, too sharp. He seemed to have sensed her feelings that she couldn't let go of. Therefore, when she was full of joy, he smiled and introduced his wife in a gentlemanly manner, as if to draw a line between them. "Xianxian, when you grow up, I'll marry you, okay? Xianxian, I like you. Let's be together forever." The promise of childhood sweetheart still echoed in her ears. The young man's solemn vow seemed to still ring in her ears. However, more than 10 years had passed, and things had changed. At this moment, there was another unfamiliar woman standing beside him, and it was obvious that he loved her very much. Did he tell this woman about the vow that he had once made to her? Thinking of this, Rong Xian couldn't help but bite her lips hard. Those speculations were like needles piercing into her heart, corroding it to the point where it was almost unbearable. She had chased after him, without a second thought. He already had his own happiness. She couldn't help but hate herself. Why didn't she look for him back then? But at the same time, she was annoyed with him. Why hadn't he come looking for her after so long? If she missed him, would be a lifetime. He couldn't accept it. She suddenly felt very unwilling, but she had no reason to convince herself not to let go. Chapter 25-32. She was not a clingy woman, but when she saw him hugging the woman intimately, she felt as if her heart had been pierced by a knife. In the hotel, the dawn dinner that originally belonged to 2 people was now occupied by 3 people sitting at the table, but each of them had their own thoughts. Wuxia was a little nervous. He glanced at the woman sitting next to him from time to time. He didn't know if she had seen the scene just now. He deliberately introduced her to Rongxian formally in order to prevent the 2 women from thinking too much. He was also surprised to meet Rongxian in Italy. He even forgot that there was a girl in the distant country of Italy whom he had loved when he was young. In his innocent youth, he also had a girl who he loved. At that time, his feelings for her were very simple. He liked her and wanted to marry her when he grew up and live happily with her for the rest of his life. It was a beautiful imagination, like a fairy tale. However, this love gradually faded as the memory faded. Compared with the unforgettable memory of him in Rongxian's mind, his memory of her disappeared with the flight to Italy. Rongxian sat at the table and cut the steak absent-mindedly. As if to ease the tension, she deliberately put all her attention on the steak. She carefully cut it into neat cubes and finally stuffed it into her mouth silently. At this moment, no matter how delicious the steak was, it was like chewing wax in her mouth. Unspoken glanced at her and then at the man next to her. She didn't say anything, but silently cut the steak and tasted it casually. In the long and tense atmosphere, Unspoken was the first to break the silence. "Honey, aren't you going to introduce her?" Hearing her words, Wuxia finally came to his senses and looked up. "Rongxian. Have you forgotten? You have just introduced her name." Unspoken said again. "Is there nothing else worth introducing except her name?" This sentence was slightly unfriendly. It could be heard that she was very repulsed by this woman named Rongxian. It was said that women were extremely sensitive. Unspoken was a meticulous person. Even a fool could tell that this woman named Rongxian was looking at her man in a different way. She clearly had feelings for him. But this kind of adoration was not something she was happy to see. Which woman could tolerate a woman who had feelings for her man sitting at the same table as her? Not even for a moment. Therefore, the moment she opened her mouth, the smell of gunpowder filled the air. Wuxia could also tell that Rongxian's tone was unkind. Just as he was about to speak, Rongxian smiled and said, "I'm sorry, my behavior today was indeed a bit abrupt. However, Zhe and I haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. Now that we've met again, it's hard to suppress the joy in my heart. Please forgive me for offending you." Pausing for a moment, she looked at Wuxia and said shyly, "I didn't expect to meet my childhood sweetheart. I feel very fortunate and happy." Childhood sweethearts? She didn't like this word at all. Her heart skipped a beat. She was his childhood sweetheart? Chapter 25-33. The woman did not seem to notice the uncomfortable expression on Unspoken's face. She smiled faintly and said in a low voice, "I'm also a little surprised. I haven't seen you for so many years, and I didn't expect you to be married. Oh, by the way, I still don't know your name." Rongxian noticed Unspoken's unintentional protest. However, this woman had immigrated to Italy at the age of 10 and had grown up in Italy. Therefore, she had adopted the typical straightforwardness of Europeans and did not hide her hostility towards this woman. She asked for her name, but her tone was not polite either. "My name is Unspoken." Unspoken? Does that mean Unspoken? Yes. Yun means yun, and shur means poetic. Oh. You guessed right. Mu Yaxia was a little surprised by her Chinese. She had immigrated to Italy at the age of 10, but she could still speak Chinese fluently and clearly. It was indeed amazing. Rong Xian seemed to understand the doubt in Mu Yaxia's eyes and said lightly, "Did you know? I'm working in the embassy now." "Is your mother still a diplomat working in the embassy?" "Yes." She was calm, generous, and elegant. Her speech and manner of conversation were extremely noble, and she had an indescribable temperament. If one had to describe her, one could only say that from her speech and behavior, this woman was obviously from the upper class. Her natural and unrestrained manner made her image seem a little harsh. After all, she was Mu Yaxia's wife, and this woman was just her husband's childhood sweetheart. After so many years, it was not inappropriate for them to sit down and have a meal together, reminisce about the past, and tease each other. However, Rong Xian's lack of honesty and unkind words made her seem a little petty. Childhood sweetheart? Unspoken suddenly laughed and looked at him. "I didn't expect you to have your first awakening of love when you were young. I thought you were like this when you were young, rigid and dull, like a little old man." "Huh? Really?" Rong Xian was a little surprised. When Zhou was young, he was not as mature and steady as he is now. Although sometimes he was a little dull and gloomy, most of the time. Well, at least when he was with me, he still loved to laugh. When he was young, his eyes were very beautiful, as if there were countless little stars hidden in them, and they were very charming. It was because of his eyes that I fell in love with him. Her straightforwardness and openness made Unspoken a little uncomfortable. One Unspoken, and Rong Xian's words, Rong Xian's. Rong Xian's, Yunz's twos to her. She's s's, sssssss. However, because the narration came from the mouth of a woman, Unspoken couldn't help but resist and reject it. While Unspoken was silent, she saw Rong Xian looking at Mu Yaxia with a smile. At the same time, she seemed to recall the carefree days of her youth through his face. Chapter 25-34. Very big. Mu Yaxia put down his knife and fork, took a napkin, and elegantly wiped the traces of tears from the corners of his mouth. He smiled slightly and said, "I still remember how you looked like when you were a child. Your eyes were big and watery, and you were always crying. Whenever you cried, the sky would darken, the earth would change color, your nose would turn red, and your tears wouldn't stop. No matter how I coaxed you, it was useless." After that, he didn't continue. Rong Xian couldn't help but laugh. "Who said that coaxing didn't work? At that time, when you saw me crying, you would try to make me happy. However, you didn't know how to coax girls, and you didn't know how to be opportunistic. When you were at your wits' end, you could only hold me in your arms and coax me gently. I asked you to sing, and you sang obediently. Just like that, I listened and stopped crying. Do you still remember? When you were a child, you didn't sing well. You couldn't even sing properly. You just sang all over the place. I was crying and crying, but I was so amused by you that I forgot to cry." As Rong Xian spoke, a faint glow appeared on her face, and she looked extremely gentle. She was immersed in nostalgia, but the more she thought about it, the more melancholy she felt. Thinking about how the man she used to love was now married, her heart ached again. With such a bad mood, she deliberately wanted to give Unspoken a taste of her own medicine. She deliberately led the conversation to the memories of their youth, as if she was deliberately trying to upset her. It was just as she wished. Unspoken's appetite was turned upside down by her. She suddenly put aside her knife and fork, lowered her head, and took a napkin to wipe the corners of her mouth silently. Rong Xian's understatement was infinitely magnified. She could tell that Rong Xian was deliberately trying to disgust her. Why was she talking about the past at this time? Could it be that she was deliberately trying to anger her? She had never participated in or known about the youth of the man she loved. In those beautiful memories, there was no her name, only Rong Xian's. So, was she flaunting her prowess to her? Was Rong Xian deliberately making fun of her? Thinking of this, Unspoken gently took a sip of the dry red wine. Then, she elegantly curved the corners of her lips and smiled. That's great. From what you said, I found out that a certain man has such a cute side. Sometimes, when he thought about it, he felt regretful. I did not participate in the memories of his youth, but fortunately, my name will be in his future, and only my name will be in it. Thinking of this, I feel very satisfied. The look on Rong Xian's face suddenly froze for a few seconds. She looked at him deeply and said with a faint smile, "Sure, do you know? I really envy you. I can see that Brother Zhe is deeply in love with you, but there are some things that can't be envied. However, I feel that the more blissful it is, the shorter it is. Therefore, the more blissful it is, the more we have to seize every moment. If you are not careful, happiness will fly away from your hands as if it has grown wings. Therefore, the more blissful you are, the more you must know how to grasp it." "Of course I understand that." Unspoken smiled faintly. Rong Xian then sighed. Things have changed with the passage of time. As soon as she finished speaking, a weak voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 25-35. Daddy. I'm hungry. Rong Xian froze for a moment and looked in the direction of the voice. She saw a little boy in a shirt open the door and walk out of the room, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Yu was awakened by hunger. When he opened his eyes, he saw Xiao Yichen sleeping soundly with his limbs spread out. He rubbed his small belly and decided to leave Xiao Yichen alone and get up to look for food. As soon as he put on his clothes, Yu vaguely heard someone talking outside the door. When he heard Unspoken's voice, he immediately opened the door and went out. However, as soon as he walked into the dining room, he saw 3 people sitting at the table. One of them was a brown-haired woman, who was beautiful but unfamiliar. Yu couldn't help but be stunned. She was probably a friend of his parents. He thought to himself, then ignored her and ran over to Unspoken to ask for a hug. Unspoken sat him on her lap and asked curiously, "Mommy, what time is it now?" "It's past 7:00 in the evening." "Aya, did I sleep for so long? I guess I won't be able to sleep again tonight." "Woo." Unspoken's gloomy mood was instantly dispelled. She couldn't help but gently pinch his little face and say unhappily, "I should have woken you up earlier. I shouldn't have let you sleep for so long. Otherwise, you'll be full of energy and won't be able to sleep at night." Rong Xian's eyes were wide open from the beginning to the end. For a moment, she couldn't digest the child's identity well. Just now, when she saw the child running out of the room, that extremely handsome little face fell into her eyes, and she was a little surprised at once. She saw the little boy's small pink face, a pair of big black and bright eyes, a small nose, a pink mouth, and snow-white teeth. When he smiled, small dimples appeared on his cheeks. He was unbelievably cute. His delicate little face was unbelievably fair, as if it was carved out of jade. It made people want to reach out and touch it personally to be sure that the child was alive and not a work of art. The expression on the little boy's white and lovely face was lovely and charming. He was like a polite little gentleman, and when he smiled, it was as if his heart was about to melt. What surprised her even more was that almost at the first sight of the child, Rong Xian immediately realized that the child must be Mu Yaja's child. If he kept a straight face, he would look exactly like Mu Yaja in his younger days. She could only imagine how handsome and cool he would be when he grew up. His looks would be earth-shattering. But, this cute side of the child's face, and, when he glanced, he gave out a cold's eyes. However, when he turned his head to look at Unspoken, his expression instantly changed. An obedient and adorable smile appeared on his face again. His lips curled up to reveal his pearly white teeth as he called out to her in a childish voice. It was simply enough to make one's heart melt a little. She was so envious. If she could have such a cute child, she would be willing to exchange her precious youth for it. Was this his child with her? He was already so big. But, if she remembered correctly, he was only 29 years old, and this child looked about 6 or 7 years old. Could it be that he got married at the age of 12? Chapter 25:36. So early? He was a proud man who had always been free and did not like to be bound by any restrictions. For him, marriage was just a formality. How could he get married so early? Rong Xian's heart suddenly turned cold. The unwillingness in her heart instantly turned into a powerless loss and empty loneliness. Over the years, it wasn't like she had never had a man before. Some of them didn't last long, while others lasted for 2 to 3 years. However, all kinds of men passed through her world, but she could never find the naivety of her first love when she was young. First love? To her, he could be considered an obscure first love, right? Or was it just her wishful thinking? Rong Xian suddenly realized that the expression on her usually elegant and calm face was a little stiff. She tried to adjust the muscles on her face and raised the corners of her lips with difficulty, although it looked a little forced. "Brother Zhe, is this your son?" When Mu Yazhe heard this, he raised his head and nodded. Then, a trace of affection and even pride appeared on his originally cold face. He was very proud of his 2 sons, Yu Yu and Xiao Yichen. "Yu Yu, this is Aunt Xian Xian." Yu Yu's gaze finally landed on the woman. He gave her a more formal look before his lips curled into a gentlemanly smile. "Auntie Xian Xian." Even though the smile on her face was cute, her voice sounded unwilling and cold. It was not very affectionate. Perhaps the child was intelligent enough to sense that his mommy wasn't friendly to this woman. No matter what the reason was, the little guy was naturally on the same side as his mommy. Therefore, even though he called her auntie, his tone was incomparably cold. The smile on Rong Xian's face faded a little because of embarrassment. When Yun Shusher heard this, she was inexplicably angry. He was indeed her son, who was in the same trench as her. Yun Shusher saw Yu Yu's coldness towards her and felt warm in her heart. Perhaps the little guy also realized that she did not like Rong Xian, so his attitude towards her was particularly cold. Rong Xian did not seem to be discouraged. In front of Mu Yazhe, she naturally tried to build a good relationship with him. She said affectionately, "Your nickname is Yu Yu, right?" "Yes." Yu Yu only gave a brief yes and then pestered Yun Shusher to cut the steak for him. "Good, good. You've just woken up and you have such an appetite." She mumbled to herself in love and annoyance before feeding him the steak she had just cut. Yu Yu opened his mouth wide and took a big bite. His mouth was stuffed with food as he mumbled, "While little Yichen is still asleep, I secretly got up to look for food." "Is Xiao Yichen still asleep?" "Yes." Mu Yazhe suddenly said, "Go and wake Mu Yichen up. Otherwise, he'll complain that he's hungry at night." Yu Yu pouted and did not say anything. He jumped down from Yun Shusher and went to the room to wake Xiao Yichen up. Everything seemed so harmonious. Rong Xian looked at this harmonious scene and felt that her presence was unnecessary. Chapter 25:37. He's so cute. Everyone says that sons look like their mommies, but I didn't expect you to look exactly like you when you were young. She was deliberately bringing the topic back to when they were young. This woman was really up to no good. Was it because she couldn't get a word in when they were talking about their childhood? This woman's every word and action was trying to exclude her. Mu Yazhe asked, "Is that so?" "Yes. He really does look like you when you were young. He's my son, so of course he looks like me." After a pause, Mu Yazhe continued, "However, he doesn't look exactly like me. His eyes look more like Shusher's." "Shusher, what an affectionate way of addressing her. Just like how he used to call her Xian Xian, it was extremely intimate." Rong Xian bit her lip silently. Her eyes were slightly red because of envy and jealousy. "That's great, you have a son. I'm so envious. It's a pity that I'm still single now. Maybe it's fate, but I haven't found the person I like yet. My parents keep urging me, but I still feel that it's better to be single. After all, there are some things in my heart that I can't let go of. I don't want to force myself to let go. As Rongxian spoke, she looked a little sad. Yunshishir felt even more nauseous all of a sudden. She did not know what kind of meaning was hidden in the woman's words. In the room, Yu climbed onto the bed and quickly removed the blanket from Xiao Yichen's body. Then, she grabbed his collar and shook him awake. Xiao Yichen opened his eyes groggily and saw Yu's enlarged face right in front of him. Her pink lips opened and closed as she said, "Mu Yichen, Mommy was bullied by a bad woman." What? Xiao Yichen's sleepiness instantly disappeared. He opened his eyes and asked fiercely, "Where did this bad woman come from? How dare she bully my mommy?" "Humph. I don't know where she came from." Yu said angrily. "When I arrived, I noticed that the atmosphere was a little strange. I was still thinking, could it be another old lover of Daddy's that popped out of nowhere?" Xiao Yichen sat up as if he was facing a formidable enemy. He raised his hand and swore, "That's impossible. I swear, at least as long as I've grown up, Daddy has never had an unknown woman by his side. You can't read his mind, so how would you know? Forget it. I don't care. Get up and chase that bad woman away." Mu Yichen nodded and immediately. Inside the dining room, Yunshishir was completely unaware of the grand scheme the two lads were plotting in secret. She lowered her head and listened to the two men's conversation. "So, did you come to Italy to take wedding photos?" "Yes." Mu Yichen looked at Yunshishir affectionately and smiled. "We can't be careless about our marriage. We've delayed it for so long, so we should give her a satisfactory explanation. Of course, we can't be careless about our marriage. Even if it's just a wedding photo shoot, we have to put in a lot of effort." Hearing this, Rongxian's smile became weaker. She felt that she was purely looking for trouble this time. Chapter 2538. Do you have any recommendations about the best locations for the wedding photo shoot? There are a few good locations in Italy, but they are usually not open to the public. For example, the Caserta Palace and the Savoy Palace. However, if it's me, I can pull some strings. If the wedding photo shoot is done in the palace, the result will definitely be very luxurious. Mu Yaja's eyes twinkled. He did not have many connections in Italy. Italy was not a market that he could dabble in, so resources were scarce there. However, Rongxian was different. She was Z country's ambassador in Italy. Her mother was a diplomat in the embassy, so she had a wide range of connections and a high status in Italy. If she were to rely on her abilities, it would not be a big problem. Mu Yaja quickly expressed his desire to go to the palace for the wedding photo shoot. Rongxian suddenly said, "How about this? Let's meet at the entrance of the hotel at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll bring you in, how about that?" After a pause, she looked at Yunshishir and said, "What do you think? If the wedding photo shoot is done in the palace, the result will definitely be amazing." Yunshishir was a little confused by her kindness and friendliness. She was so kind. Rongxian did not know what she was thinking with such enthusiasm and flattery. "I have no objections." Yunshishir smiled and did not say anything. Rongxian immediately said, "Then it's decided, right? Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Okay." Yu pushed Xiao Yichen out of the room and said, "Mommy, Mu Yichen said he's hungry and wants to eat cheesecake." Rongxian thought, Mu Yichen? Who is Mu Yichen? She turned around and was shocked when she saw the two little fellows who looked like replicas standing together. Two? In front of her, the two little guys looked exactly the same except for their height. She quickly realized that Yu had a twin brother. Mu Yichen? So, Yunshushu gave birth to a pair of cute babies for him? No wonder he was so favored. A mother's status depended on her son, and a mother's status depended on her son. It must be because she had given birth to a pair of sons for him that she was so favored. Rong Xian was surprised. The probability of giving birth to twins was extremely small. It was obvious that Mu Yaja doted on Yu Yu very much. It was obvious that he loved the child very much. If that was the case, then his love extended to her as well. She suddenly felt that it was extremely unfair. Rong Xian was a little surprised. Sure, it turns out that Yu Yu has a brother. Mu Yichen asked, Mommy, who is this auntie? How come I've never seen it before? Hearing this, Rong Xian immediately said, Little fool, I knew your father before you were born. I grew up with him when I was little. Mu Yichen was a little disgusted by her deliberately affectionate calling him little fool. He turned his face away proudly and said in a serious voice, Don't call me little fool. No one can call me little fool except for Daddy and Mommy. His deliberate rejection made Rong Xian's face stiffen again. Soon, a weak smile appeared on her face, and it was even a little pitiful. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I called you little fool because I like you. You like me, but you call me little fool? What kind of logic is that? Chapter 25-39. Xiao Yichen said with some annoyance, Mommy, I don't like this auntie. She's so annoying. Can you let her go? Yu Yu's eyelids twitched. This kid was a little too aggressive with his words. But he liked it. Yichen. Mu Yaja scolded softly, seemingly dissatisfied with his son's attitude toward Rong Xian. Don't be so rude. Wu, little Yichen whimpered in grievance like an aggrieved kitten. He seemed to be a little angry inside. Why is this stupid daddy of mine siding with an outsider? Rong Xian looked disappointed again, but she forced a smile and immediately said, Brother Zhe, the child is not sensible. Don't scold him. It's inevitable that he will reject me when he sees me as a stranger. Mu Yaja said, The child is not sensible. You can't spoil him. After a pause, he said to Xiao Yichen, Auntie Xian is a guest. As the little host, shouldn't you be more polite to the guest? His words made Yunshushu feel a little better. Guest. Host. The distinction between the primary and the secondary couldn't be any clearer. What did this mean? This showed that Rong Xian was just a guest in his heart now, except for the innocent memory, and it was the etiquette of a host to treat her politely. This also meant that she was the host, and Rong Xian was just an outsider. Xiao Yichen was enlightened when he heard this. He immediately understood Mu Yaja's position and walked over reluctantly. He stuck to Yunshushu's side and sat on her lap obediently. Yu Yu also stuck to Yunshushu's side. The two little guys sat next to her as if they were her protectors. Rong Xian's face was a little embarrassed when Mu Yaja said that Rong Xian was a guest. The smile on her face quickly withered like a flower. It seemed that his attitude was very clear now that he had placed her in the position of a guest. In the end, she was overthinking things. Thinking of this, Rong Xian turned to Yu Yu and smiled, You are Yu Yu, right? Yes. She then looked at Xiao Yichen. You're Xiao Yichen? Yes. The two of them really look alike. If it weren't for their different hairstyles, I would have mixed them up. Rong Xian said and suddenly reached out to Yu Yu, trying to pinch his pink cheeks. Yu Yu immediately turned his face away in disgust. It was as if the woman in front of him was a hungry wolf. Yu Yu, Yunshushu suddenly smiled and said to Rong Xian, Although this little guy is small, he is very smart and has a temper. Not everyone will touch his face. Rong Xian was a little angry. She had made it clear that she had deliberately tried to please the two little guys for Mu Yaja's sake, but in the end, she was not appreciated. She could not help but feel a little annoyed. I'm very narrow-minded, and not everyone can call me Yu Yu. Especially if it's someone I don't like. After a pause, Yu pretended to be generous and said, however, since you are a guest of Daddy and Mommy, I'll give Aunt Xian this special right. The little guy deliberately emphasized that she was a guest of Daddy and Mommy, implying that she was an outsider. Rong Xian could no longer sit still. Chapter 2540. Rong Xian was a little embarrassed. She stood up and said, "It's getting late. I have to go back to deal with something." "What is it?" "There's a traffic accident. I need to deal with it." "A traffic accident?" "Yes." Rong Xian nodded. "I was rear-ended by a Bentley today. It's not over yet." "Are you hurt?" Mu Yaja asked out of concern. Rong Xian shook her head. "It's nothing. It's just a rear-end collision. I'm fine." "That's good." Rong Xian nodded and said, "Then I'll go now. You guys should rest early. See you tomorrow." As she spoke, she stood up, picked up her handbag, and left like a defeated general who had deserted the army. Mu Yaja walked her to the door and watched her leave. When he turned around, he saw that the smile on Yunshirshi's face had suddenly faded. She stood up, put her knife and fork aside, went into the room expressionlessly, and closed the door with a bang. Xiao Yichen was a little flustered and worried when he saw this. He immediately ran into the room. Mu Yaja frowned and was about to walk over when Yu suddenly stopped him. "Daddy, shouldn't you give me an explanation?" "Or an explanation?" "Explanation?" Mu Yaja was confused. "What's wrong? Who is this woman?" "A friend." "A friend?" Yu shook his head and then said unhappily, "The word friend is too general. Ex-girlfriends are also friends. Old lovers are also friends." Mu Yaja frowned and the corner of his mouth twitched. "Old lovers? Where did you learn this word?" "On TV. Watch less TV in the future," Mu Yaja said and was about to go to the room. Yu ran in front of him again and stopped him. "You're not allowed to leave." The little guy's attitude was a little tough. Mu Yaja asked patiently, "What is it now? Could this woman be Daddy's childhood sweetheart?" The little fellow's keen perception shocked him. Just from the conversation, he had roughly figured out the woman's identity. Mu Yaja hummed in acknowledgement and did not deny it. Yu shrugged and said, "Actually, I don't care who this woman is, and I don't want to investigate her past. But if this woman's appearance makes Mommy unhappy, shouldn't Daddy find a way to deal with the situation?" Yu snorted coldly. Even a fool could tell that the way Auntie Xian looked at Daddy was different. It was no wonder that Mommy felt aggrieved. Another woman was showing affection for her man in front of her. She definitely couldn't stand it. Since Daddy also said that they were friends and childhood sweethearts, it should be a very old past. Daddy was not being kind at all about this. You didn't care about Mommy's feelings at all. Mu Yaja was speechless. He suddenly squatted down and looked at him. "Do you know that you're acting like the presiding judge? Will you only stop when you convict Daddy?" "Humph. You're my dear Daddy. I wouldn't dare." He couldn't help but scratch his nose. "Why wouldn't you dare? Aren't you trying to convict your dear Daddy now? You made Mommy unhappy. Of course I'm angry at you." Chapter 2541. Yu furrowed his brows and grumbled unhappily, "Daddy, why do you have so many rotten admirers? There's no end to them." After Mu Wanra left, Song Enya came. As if that wasn't enough, now there's Auntie Xian. Who knows who else will pop up after that? "Daddy, you can only blame yourself for being too charming. The line of people who like you stretches all the way to Siberia. Still, you should at least consider Mommy's feelings. You should break up with a woman like her." As a son, he lectured his father until he could not get angry at all. Mu Yaja immediately bowed his head to his father. Daddy knows his mistake now. It's great that you can correct your mistakes. Yu then ruffled his hair. Hurry up and coax Mommy. Okay, got it. Wuxia gently pushed open the door to the room. The lights were dim, and the moonlight outside the window spilled in. He could vaguely see Unspoken lying on the bed, and Xiao Yichen lying on the edge of the bed. When he heard the door open and saw him coming in, he immediately ran away. He walked over and squatted down beside the bed. The person on the bed seemed to sense his approach and pulled the blanket up a little, covering herself completely with it. Even her breathing seemed to have stopped. Wuxia sighed silently and reached out to lift the cup. Unspoken, on the other hand, clutched the blanket tightly and covered herself with it, not even letting out a breath. He asked in a deep voice, "Madam, are you angry with me again?" "No." Unspoken said sullenly, but her tone was extremely awkward. She was obviously sulking. Wuxia pondered for a moment, not knowing how to explain it. He had also vaguely sensed that something was wrong with Unspoken's expression during dinner tonight. She was a little nauseous and a little nauseous. He knew in his heart that her abnormal behavior tonight was probably related to Rongxian. He could also tell that Rongxian's attitude toward Unspoken was not very friendly. Both women were very possessive. Rongxian was his childhood sweetheart. Perhaps, if that accident had not happened, the Rongs would not have migrated to Italy. Based on his character, perhaps, there would not have been an accident like Unspoken's. However, there were no ifs in life. They had missed each other by a freak combination of factors. One's past, the other's present and future. The two secretly competed with each other, neither was willing to give in to the other, but they were both jealous of each other. For a moment, he really was at a loss for an explanation. She felt that it was best not to explain this matter. The more she tried to explain, the worse it would get. Instead, she would feel that there was something going on between them. But that did not mean that, Yunza's, SSSS. He sat on the edge of the bed and lay down next to her. Rongxian emigrated with her family when she was 10 years old, he said faintly. From that day, ours, I have been, of the two. Moreover, what happened more than 10 years ago has become the past. Today's meeting was also unexpected. Don't misunderstand that I came to Italy especially for her. It was difficult for him to explain so seriously. After racking his brains, he finally managed to come up with an explanation that wasn't really an explanation. Unspoken did not say a word. At this moment, she felt a little upset. She did not know what she was upset about. She only knew that she was probably jealous of Rongxian. Chapter 2542. Was it because of his possessiveness? She wanted to find out more about the past between him and Rongxian. For example, Rongxian said that they were childhood sweethearts. Childhood sweethearts. That was an extremely ambiguous term. The fact that they were childhood sweethearts proved that they used to be very close. Although they were separated when they were 10 and 12 years old, she couldn't help but wonder how close they were, that he, who had always been estranged from women, didn't refuse Rongxian's passionate hug. After being separated for more than 10 years, this woman seemed to have a lot of emotions, but his expression was calm. It was unknown if he was really calm or if he was deliberately hiding the surging emotions in his heart. Childhood sweethearts, it should be a very deep memory. But if Rongxian hadn't emigrated, then according to this man's character, then, what about her? She suddenly didn't dare to think about it. If you loved someone deeply, you would want to be the only one in his life. If you were more extreme, you would even want to be his destined lover. However, the sudden appearance of Rongxian immediately disrupted her plans. She suddenly felt a little unconfident. Today, it was Rongxian. What about tomorrow? Would there be other childhood sweethearts? This man was so outstanding, so there should be many women who liked him. There should be many women like Rongxian, right? The more this was the case, the more she felt a loss of confidence. Perhaps she was feeling insecure. Therefore, she was eager to know his feelings for Rongxian. While her thoughts were running wild, Yunshishir suddenly heard Mu Yaja get up and walk slowly to the balcony. She heard the sound of the door opening. At the same time, she felt a little surprised and a little lonely. This man had finally lost his patience with her. It seemed that he rarely coaxed her. She couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Rongxian had said before that when she was wronged and cried sadly, he would gently stay by her side, coax her patiently, and even sing for her. But previously, when she asked him to sing at the KTV, he looked very reluctant. She begged him in every possible way, but he didn't sing a single song. It was so unfair. Just thinking about it made him feel dejected. Right now, she was just throwing a tantrum. As long as he was patient and coaxed a little, she wouldn't be so willful. Yunshishir suddenly lifted the quilt in disappointment, but suddenly heard Mu Yaja's calm voice from the balcony. Xianxian, I have something to tell you. When Yunshishir heard this, her expression changed. She walked to the balcony and looked through the floor-to-ceiling window at the back of the man standing on the balcony. She frowned in confusion. Tomorrow's schedule is cancelled. Why? On the other end, Rongxian asked in surprise, Brother Zhe, didn't we make an agreement before? Don't tell me you don't want to go to the palace for your wedding photo shoot? There's no need to go through so much trouble, Mu Yaja said casually. Why would you go through so much trouble? Rongxian smiled and said hurriedly, many people want to film in the palace, but they are not qualified to go in. However, as long as I say the word, the entire palace will be unimpeded. Chapter 2543. Mu Yaja said, if I want to get in, I don't have to go through you. These words were a blatant rejection of him. I don't have to go through you. What is this? Rongxian had mixed feelings. She didn't know what that woman said to him after she left. Why was he so cold to her? Through the floor-to-ceiling window, Yunshishir could vaguely hear the estrangement in his words. She was a little surprised. It turned out that this man was not impatient to coax her. He knew that no matter how he coaxed her, if this matter was not completely resolved, it would definitely leave a gap in her heart. So, what he decided to do was to completely remove this gap. Therefore, he decided to keep a distance from Rongxian. This man had always been swift and decisive. Once he thought of something, he immediately put it into action. He didn't care how much pain his words would cause Rongxian and didn't have the slightest hesitation. Yunshishir was his wife, so he should be concerned about her feelings. Other than that, other feelings were not so important. Rongxian was stunned and said a little hesitantly, Brother Zhe. You're being too polite. She suddenly said, are you free now? Why don't we talk alone? Just now, because Yunshishir was a third party, there were some things that she couldn't open up to him. Therefore, she invited him over the phone, hoping that he could meet her alone. After losing contact for more than 10 years, she had thought that she had completely forgotten about him. However, now that they met again, from the moment they met unexpectedly, the infatuation hidden in the depths of her memory gushed out again. Rongxian believed that this was fate, so there were many things that she wanted to tell him. Therefore, she summoned her courage, put aside her ladylike demeanor, and took the initiative to ask to meet him. Mu Yaja frowned but didn't speak for a long time. What's wrong? Is it inconvenient? If it's not convenient, I'll pick you up. It's not inconvenient. Mu Yaja paused, then smiled and said, my wife doesn't like me to meet with other women alone. Rongxian was completely silent on the other end of the phone. From the phone, she could vaguely hear her gasp, which was followed by a long period of suffocation. It seemed that she had been beaten black and blue by this sentence. Why, must you be so cold? Brother Zhe, don't you think you're being too heartless to me? These words are too hurtful. Wuxia smiled faintly and said without hiding anything, Xian, I know your feelings for me. However, this affection was broken 17 years ago, on the day you immigrated to the United States. But now, I have a wife that I love deeply and a happy family. As a man, I have to consider my wife's feelings. Rong Xian was stunned. His straightforwardness was somewhat unacceptable. 17 years ago, you disappeared from my life. You emigrated to Italy with your family. I was indeed very sad, very sad. I even thought about applying to a famous university in Italy and following you to Italy. However, when I was 20 years old, I took over the affairs of the Mu family. From then on, your name completely faded from my life. Rong Xian couldn't help but confess hurriedly, but you have never faded from my life. Wuxia smiled and said, this is different. Chapter 2544. Rong Xian couldn't help but confess, but you've never faded from my life. Wuxia smiled. That's different. What's the difference? Rong Xian asked eagerly. Wuxia said slowly, because you've faded from my life. Rong Xian was so shocked that she couldn't speak. Her heart ached so much that she almost suffocated. What could be more heart-wrenching than this sentence? However, what he said next made her feel as if she had been struck by lightning. From the moment she appeared, you no longer left any traces behind. There was a long silence. Rong Xian pinched her palms and mustered up her courage to ask, Brother Zhe, I just want to ask you one question. She carefully probed, have you ever had feelings for me? Wuxia pondered for a moment. How can you say that I've fallen for you when I was young? How can it not be? Was he admitting that he had been tempted before? Rong Xian's heart, which had been full of despair, was rekindled. So what if it was more than a decade ago? After so many years, I've never forgotten you. I'm married. Wuxia calmly reminded her of this fact again. It was a deliberate coldness. You know my character. Once I've decided on someone or something, I'll never change my mind. Then, if, Rong Xian was at a loss. If you hadn't met her, if she didn't exist, there's no if. He interrupted her, not giving her any hope. Just answer me directly. Rong Xian insisted. If you hadn't met her, if this woman hadn't appeared in your life, would it still be possible between us? Wuxia gave her an answer almost without any hesitation. No. Words of love had to be short, and the feelings had to be deep. This was his attitude toward relationships, and he was resolute to the end. He didn't give her any hope or leeway. He directly shattered her fantasy with his own hands. This can't be true. Rong Xian's voice trembled. Have you never liked me? No. Wuxia's coldness, with just 2 words, instantly put her in a bottomless ice cellar. The other end of the line quickly hung up and displayed a busy tone. Wuxia hung up the phone expressionlessly. When he turned around, he saw Unspoken standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at him in a daze. Seeing that he had finished his call and was walking in, she immediately clarified, I didn't eavesdrop on purpose. The more she said this, the more guilty she felt. She felt like she was eavesdropping. Wuxia raised his eyebrows. You heard everything? She nodded awkwardly, feeling a little embarrassed. Although she didn't hear what Rong Xian said, she heard everything he said just now. Wuxia took a step closer to her and leaned over slightly. Looking into her eyes, he asked gently, Are you still angry with me now? Unspoken immediately explained, I'm not angry. You're still denying it? Wuxia couldn't help but scratch her nose. When you're angry, you like to hide from me, like a little turtle, hiding in the corner. And you're still denying it? Unspoken looked away awkwardly and muttered, I'm just a little sad. Sad about what? Nothing. Chapter 2545. I'm going to wash up. After that, she walked towards the bathroom. The man suddenly grabbed her wrist, pulled her into his embrace, and hugged her from behind. Xianxia, don't be angry. Xianxia, don't be angry. His euphemistic tone seemed to be trying to please her. Usually, in front of outsiders, he would introduce her as wife or wife, but in private, he liked to call her Xianxia, especially when they were having sex. He hugged her tightly and whispered in her ear over and over again, Xianxia. Xianxia, she was so happy that she felt numb. Often, when he called her name so gently, she would lose all strength to resist in an instant. Xianxia, even if I had feelings for Rong Xian, they died more than 10 years ago. She was indeed my childhood sweetheart, but I was young and ignorant. I couldn't even tell what love was. Don't be angry because of this and punish me in a disguised way. I'm not angry, Xianxia bit her lip and said quietly, I'm just a little jealous. Jealous? Wuxia frowned. Jealous? What was there to be jealous of? When it came to jealousy, Rong Xian was jealous of her. Xianxia pursed her lips and said, maybe I'm too emotional. She suddenly turned around and looked up at him. She said casually, do you know? I'm actually very jealous of her. When we were young, she was able to accompany you and share so many memories with me. When I heard her talk about the past with you when you were young, I felt bitter and envious. I even started to wonder if you would still be together with her if I didn't appear. Even if there are memories, it's all in the past. Have you ever liked her? Xianxia suddenly asked. Wuxia frowned. He suddenly felt that women were really interesting. Just now, Rong Xian had also persistently asked him if he had ever liked her. Now, she was also relentlessly pursuing this topic. To a man, whether or not he had liked or loved before was not important. Only a relationship that had a beginning and an end was worth cherishing. The past was not worth mentioning at all. Women liked to explore the past. As for him, he cherished the present and the future even more. He didn't want to look back on the past. However, he had no choice but to answer her question. Otherwise, her imagination would run wild again. This woman was always so insecure, and he, as her man, naturally had the responsibility to comfort her. This question is very tricky. It requires a strong imagination to give you a satisfactory answer. He gave such an answer. Xianxia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What kind of answer is that? Because there are no ifs in this world. Wuxia paused for a moment before continuing. You're asking if, but there's no such if. You just need to know that I've already set my mind on you and that it has to be you. No matter who appears, it's a fact that cannot be changed. So, it's meaningless for you to ask if. Well. Chapter 2546. Wuxia pursed his lips. Leng Jun couldn't help but say, if I were to say that, it would be a little biased. I'm not an emperor who can't have multiple wives and concubines. If I like someone, I can only give it to one person. What's the difference in number? Xianxia couldn't stop laughing all of a sudden. Were those words of love? She stared at him seriously, looking at the curve of his lips. His lips were thin and cold, but because of this sentence that sounded like words of love, it was extremely gentle. Xianxia suddenly hugged him emotionally and threw herself into his arms. Burying her smiling face in his chest, she said in a guilty and coquettish manner, I'm sorry. I was too narrow-minded. I couldn't be so calculative over such a small matter. As she said that, she rubbed her face against his chest like a spoiled kitten, languid and coquettish. I'm not angry anymore, and I won't be petty anymore. I like how petty you are. Wuxia gently stroked her hair and cupped her face with his broad palm. He lowered his head slightly and gave her a kiss on the corner of her lips. At least, this shows that you care about me a lot, Of course I care. Xianxia blushed and said, I care about you, no matter how big or small it is. I don't even care about a strand of your hair. Originally, Rong Xian's sudden appearance had cast a shadow over her heart. However, his words had lifted the clouds in her heart, and she had returned from a land of ice and snow to a sunny day. Even her somewhat gloomy heartbeat recovered and became as warm as before. Did this mean that they had reconciled? Unspoken silently cursed in her heart, but a sweet smile appeared on her face. That night, after the lights were turned off, he pressed her against his body and was especially passionate when it came to making love. This man would never say words of love that would make one's heart beat faster. Therefore, in bed, he showed unparalleled passion and put all his shameful words of love into action. What an introverted and profound man. When he held her in his arms, so many affectionate words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't speak frankly. Thus, he used these feelings that were difficult to speak of in the context of love. Amidst his passion, he hugged the back of her neck and helped her sit on top of him. He hugged her shoulders and pressed them against the side of his shoulders. He leaned close to her ear and kept saying her name. Sure. The tip of his heart was so happy that it felt numb. After the charm, he hugged her and buried his face in her neck. He pecked at the fine beads of sweat on her chest and felt every inch of her trembling skin. He closed his eyes and said softly, "I will love you for the rest of my life." This was probably the deepest love. She had already become his heart, his ribs, the softest part of his body that he wanted to protect. "I will love you all my life." He said this sentence silently. His voice was not loud, but it was very deep. Just like the impression he gave people, he was mature and steady. Unspoken hugged him. At this moment, she was so happy that she didn't know what to do. To be able to have such a relationship, she had no regrets in this life. To be able to hold his hand for the rest of her life, she had no regrets in this life. She imagined that when the two of them were old and gray, they could still hold hands like this and have no regrets in this life. Chapter 2547. Unspoken woke up very early in the morning. She finally managed to coax the two little lads out of bed, but she also managed to coax a certain man out of bed. After Wuxia sat up, he lowered his head sleepily and yawned. This was a stark difference from his usual spirited appearance. Serves him right. He must have exhausted himself last night. She was different from him. Although the journey was tiring, he was the one who took care of everything. As for her, all she had to do was put on her wedding gown and take photos. As for the rest, she would leave it to him. She had caught up on sleep on the plane. This man, on the other hand, had indeed been too busy for the past few days. In the spare time during the wedding photo shoot, he still had to open his laptop and go through the financial reports and important documents sent by Lu Jinyu. He was busy for half the night. He had done it with her many times last night. However, men were different from women. She had already gotten used to his rhythm. In addition, he had exerted more effort last night, so she wasn't too intense. On the other hand, he was busy and couldn't bear to stop until the wee hours of the morning. Although she was also a little tired, after a good night's sleep, she was still in high spirits with anticipation for the wedding photo shoot. Unspoken said coldly, "Who asked you to not know how to control yourself? The journey was so tiring, and last night." Wuxia glanced at her from the corner of his eyes and suddenly reached out to hold her waist. With a flip, he pinned her under him and snorted coldly. "Aren't you thinking too much? What?" Unspoken was shocked by his sudden attack. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she asked, "What do you mean by thinking too much? Are you suspecting that I overdid it last night and exhausted myself? Isn't that the case?" Unspoken blinked slyly. She looked like a kitten who was having an affair. "Won't you know if I overdid it when you try?" As Wuxia spoke, he led her hand to his erection. Unspoken was taken aback by the scalding temperature. What? Why was he so energetic early in the morning? Because of the man's blatant provocation, her face immediately turned red with embarrassment. Stop fooling around. Stop messing around? Mu Yaja laughed and curled his lips. You're the one who's provoking me. I didn't. Isn't that so? Are you questioning my stamina? Yun Shishir stuck out her tongue silently in her heart. Sure enough, I can't easily provoke a man. No matter how steady a man was, when faced with this provocation, he would immediately take it seriously. Even if it sounded like a joke. Men can also be indifferent. Moreover, he was such a proud man. Mu Yaja coldly snorted. My physical strength is more than enough to deal with 10 of you. Do you want to try? No, Yun Shishir pouted. I was just joking. Why are you taking it so seriously? There are some things that you can't joke about. Mu Yaja said seriously with a serious expression. Especially in this aspect. Alright, I won't do it in the future. But you're not young anymore. It's kind of me to remind you to control yourself a little. Old? A certain man raised his eyebrows. He was 29 years old, not yet 30 years old. He was still a good young man. How did she make it sound like he wasn't young anymore? Chapter 25:48. Yun Shishir thought to herself. If things were to continue like this, she wondered if he would still be able to maintain such good stamina when he reached middle age. Her face instantly heated up at the thought of this. How embarrassing. Wasn't she overthinking things? Mu Yaja seemed to be able to read minds. He immediately sensed what she was thinking and said in a low voice, Don't worry. Even when I'm 80 years old, I'll still fulfill your wishes. Yun Shishir was speechless. Did he have to be so direct? Where are we going to take our wedding photos today? She quickly changed the topic. However, her self-righteous wit couldn't fool a certain shrewd man. Don't try to change the topic. Mu Yaja snorted coldly. Do you think I'm so easily fooled? Don't be so serious. There's no point in being serious. I don't mean anything by it. You're the one who's thinking too much. A certain little woman threw the burden away. She rolled her eyes slightly and smiled. Otherwise, people will think that you're the one who flew into a rage out of humiliation. The man slapped her but gently and snorted, You're asking for a beating. Be good, stop fooling around. Be a good girl and get up to wash your face and brush your teeth. No. The man threw a childish tantrum. He indulged in her body and didn't want to get up. He thought to himself that it was still early. Should he take advantage of such a beautiful morning to enjoy some morning dessert? Yun Shishir could tell that he was up to no good. She immediately said, You and Xiao Yichen are already up. If they come in and see you, they'll make fun of you again. This sentence had the effect of an absolute deterrent. Those two mischievous little rascals. They were always ruining his plans. Hence, he stopped fooling around. He pressed her down and kissed her a few times, reluctant to part with her. Then, he nimbly got up from the bed. After washing his face and brushing his teeth, he felt refreshed. The hotel delivered an exquisite breakfast. The family of 4 sat in the dining room and enjoyed the wonderful breakfast time. As Yu gracefully enjoyed her breakfast, she asked calmly, Mommy, are we going to Venice for our wedding photo shoot today? Yun Shishir was a little surprised. How did you know? Who told you that? Daddy said so. Yun Shishir cast a puzzled look at a certain calm man. Today's target is Venice? Yes. Mu Yaja looked up at her. Why, you don't like it? I like it. Yun Shishir was overjoyed. I used to yearn for Venice. The scenery must be beautiful, right? Not bad. I don't come to Italy often. Haven't you been flying all over the world? You should have been to quite a few countries. Yes, but that's a business trip, not a vacation. Most of the time, I'm in the hotel. If I'm not in a meeting, I'm meeting important people. There's basically no time to go sightseeing. I see. Unspoken took a bite of her sandwich and fantasized, the scenery should be good. But it's a pity that we're in a hurry. Xiao Yichen said, if you like, you can set aside an extra day for sightseeing. Daddy will definitely agree, right? Can I? Unspoken asked for his opinion. If you like, there's nothing that can't be done. His doting reply made her feel much happier. This man. Chapter 2549. After breakfast, the four of them cleaned up and left the house happily. They had agreed to meet at the entrance of the hotel with Mankey. However, when Unspoken walked out of the hotel with Mu Yaja's arm, she saw a Maserati parked at the entrance. Her eyelids twitched violently as she recalled the glimpse she had seen the previous afternoon. If she was not mistaken, this car belonged to that woman. Soon, her guess was confirmed. As soon as they walked out of the hotel, a woman got out of the Maserati. This woman was none other than Rong Xian. Why was it her again? Why is this woman still haunting me like a ghost? Unspoken's originally bright and cheerful mood sank to rock bottom in an instant. Her face sank as well. If she did not remember wrongly, the man had already laid his cards on the table with her last night. No matter how heartless he was, he had spilled everything. Since he was so straightforward with his words, this woman must have suffered quite a bit of heartache, right? Why was she so shamelessly sticking to him now? Could it be that her heart had not given up yet? Had his words not been cruel enough? Had he not been straightforward enough? Or could it be that his words had triggered her desire to plunder? Unspoken glanced at Mu Yaja, who was next to her, and saw that his face had also become a little gloomy at this moment. Mu Yaja stared at Rong Xian with a gloomy face. Rong Xian walked over to them as if nothing had happened. It was as if she had completely forgotten what Mu Yaja had said the day before. She had a gentle smile on her face, which was as elegant as it could be. She was so elegant that it made people wonder if she was heartless. If it had been any other woman, her heart would have been broken when the man she loved laid his cards on the table so straightforwardly. However, she acted as if nothing had happened. Rong Xian walked over and smiled at Mu Yaja. She greeted him, "You're so early. But I'm even earlier than you. I arrived at 8:30. In fact, she had arrived at 8 o'clock. It was all for the sake of waiting for them. That's right. Did he really think that she would give up completely just because he said those cruel words? Impossible. Since they had met, she stubbornly believed that this was fate arranged by the heavens. As she spoke, she ignored Mu Yaja's gloomy expression and shifted her gaze to Unspoken. She then intimately walked up to her and held her hand as affectionately as if they were sisters. "Xianxia, I heard from Brother Zhe that you're not planning to go to the palace for the shoot, is that right?" Unspoken didn't know what to say. Rong Xian smiled and suddenly said regretfully, "What a pity. When I went back last night, I made arrangements for you guys. Brother Kaja called to say that you guys decided not to go to the palace for the shoot. He felt sorry for you guys. There's nothing to regret." Unspoken said, "We've decided to go to Venice for the wedding shoot." Venice? That's not bad. The scenery in Venice is beautiful, and it's a world-famous city. It's a romantic choice for the wedding shoot. After a pause, she pretended to be generous and asked, "Do you need a guide? It's rare for you guys to come to Italy. You should get together more while you're doing the wedding shoot." "I don't think we need one," Unspoken said bluntly. "Our schedule is tight. After the shoot, we have to go back to China." She was ruthless and direct, leaving no room for negotiation. Chapter 2550. Rong Xian didn't expect her to be so determined. She tried to persuade her to stay. Italy is a good place for sightseeing, and it's the off-season now. There aren't many people there. It's rare for you to come to Italy. Don't you think it's too hasty to leave after shooting? Xianxia said resolutely, I don't think it's rushed at all. Both he and I have work to do. We're taking advantage of the holiday to take wedding photos, so it won't take too long. Compared to her silence last night, her attitude today was much tougher. Rong Xian couldn't help but feel shocked. Her strength and enmity towards her couldn't be any more obvious. She didn't know what this woman had said to Wuxia, but as soon as she left last night, he immediately called her and said that he wanted to cut off all ties with her. His tough tone seemed to indicate that he couldn't even maintain the friendship between friends. It must be her. She must be the one behind this. Rong Xian thought bitterly, but she was getting more and more excited. Suddenly, she smiled and turned to Wuxia to ask for his opinion. Brother Xia, you don't have to be so polite. I grew up in Italy, so I'm very familiar with this country. As the host, I naturally have to give you a warm welcome and do my duty as a host. If you leave in such a hurry, it'll make us seem estranged. If word gets out, people will say that I'm neglecting you. I can't do that. It's useless to talk to him. Xianxia suddenly said. He's here because of my temperament. If I want to stay here, he will postpone his schedule and accompany me for a few more days. If I don't want to stay, he won't stay either. Rong Xian was shocked by her straightforwardness and undisguised attitude. All along, when she spoke to this woman, she had always concealed her feelings. Even if she hated her, she didn't show it on her face. However, things were different now. Xianxia's face was full of disgust for her. Anyone with a little insight could see that she hated Rong Xian to the extreme. Why? Rong Xian saw that Xianxia didn't hide her dislike for her at all, and a weak and aggrieved look quickly appeared on her face. You don't seem to like me very much. Xianxia's lips curled into a contemptuous smile as she intimately hooked her arm through his. That's right. I really don't like to see you. Let's go back as soon as possible. Out of sight, out of mind. Why? You don't like to see me. There must be a reason, right? Rong Xian asked with a forced smile. Xianxia cocked a brow. You don't need a reason to hate or like someone. There is no reason. Is there? Is no reason. Rong Xian looked at Xianxia. She smiled, pretending to be affectionate. Xianxia, I think you must misunderstand something is wrong with me. Xianxia. Was it because of the conversation between Brother Xia and I yesterday? Did it make you uncomfortable? But don't get it. I was just too excited to see a friend I haven't seen for many years. So, if I said something I shouldn't have, please don't take it to heart. Brother Xia is like a big brother to me. It's not what you think. Chapter 25:51. Xianxia's smile stiffened. She had thought that after what she had said, Rong Xian would be humiliated and leave angrily. However, that was not the case. Instead, she smiled and spoke kindly to her. Her warm smile and guilty gaze made it difficult for anyone to find fault with her. Her expression of being wronged and forced smile was flawless, as if she had suffered a great grievance. She looked so pitiful that anyone who saw her would feel pity for her. It made her seem too mean, didn't it? Wuxia frowned slightly and finally said, Rong Xian, don't be ridiculous. Rong Xian noticed how he addressed her. Rong Xian was an extremely unfamiliar name. In the past, he had always called her Xian Xian. Now, he had changed the way he addressed her. Unknowingly, the distance between the two of them had widened. Her shoulders trembled and her thick eyelashes suddenly fluttered. A teardrop suddenly rolled out of her eye socket uncontrollably. Brother Xia, she suddenly stepped forward emotionally and forced herself to maintain her elegant demeanor. She smiled bitterly with tears in her eyes. Last night, when you called me, I heard everything you said. I thought about it all night and cried all night. I've really thought it through. I used to have high hopes and expectations for you, but now that you have your own happiness and a perfect marriage, I sincerely wish you all the best. I have no other thoughts. However, Xianxia seems to be very hostile towards me. This is not what I wanted to see. She paused and sobbed again. From now on, I'll be settling down in Italy. And you have your own life too. We can only see each other once. After this separation, we don't know when we'll meet again. Just take it as a memorial to the past. Don't tell me you're stingy with giving me such an opportunity. Xianxia clenched her fists in anger when she heard this. This woman was shameless to the extreme. She couldn't figure out what this woman was trying to do. Since she had already made things clear, why was she still clinging on to Wuxia? Was there some ulterior motive? No matter how hard she racked her brains, she still couldn't think of a reason. However, when she saw Wuxia's impatient expression, she suddenly smiled and said, "We're going to take our wedding photos today. Do you want to come along?" "Of course." Rongxian smiled through her tears and said, "You definitely need help to take wedding photos. I can help you lift your dress or touch up your makeup sometimes." "Alright, since you insist, then let's go together. I don't have any objections." She seemed to be taking a step back, but in fact, she had her own little scheme. No matter which woman wanted to play tricks, sow discord, or fan the flames, when she took a step back, she was also taking a step back. Since she couldn't see clearly, then she would make her see clearly. "Let's go together then." A public display of affection? She had never been willing to show off her love. She always felt like she was putting on a show. But since someone wanted to see it, then she would show it off. The hotel had arranged for 2 cars. One of them was for luggage and could seat 3 people. The 2 cars had a total of 6 people. Chapter 2552. Xianxia offered to team up with Rongxian. Obviously, she was still wary of her and did not trust her to be alone with Wuxia or one of the 2 little ones. Rongxian gladly accepted. On the way, Xianxia and Rongxian sat in the back seat while Yu sat in the front passenger seat. Xianxia buckled her seat belt for her and the car set off. After a long silence in the car, Rongxian finally broke the silence. "Xianxia, don't you and Brother Zhe need some privacy?" "What?" Rongxian asked. "You two are always together. Don't you get tired of it?" "Not really," Xianxia said. "He and I are usually very busy with work. Other than at night, we are busy with our own careers. However, as long as he is free, he will put everything aside and stay by my side." "Then wouldn't you have less privacy?" "He doesn't need privacy." Rongxian's face stiffened and she changed the topic. "Speaking of careers, what do you do for a living?" "I'm an actress." "An actress?" Rongxian was even more surprised. "Xianxia is a big star." "I'm not a big star. It's just a hobby," Rongxian said quietly. "The domestic entertainment industry is a mess. Xianxia, you must keep your nose clean and don't get involved with those messy practices. The entertainment industry is a big divat. The relationships in the industry are very messy. Brother Zhe values these things very much. Don't make a mistake." Xianxia sneered in her heart. Rongxian pretended to be considerate of her, but her words were so harsh. It was obvious that she was targeting her. Xianxia looked at Rongxian's hypocritical face and smiled slightly. "Thank you for the reminder. Xianxia, how did you and Brother Zhe meet?" She suddenly asked curiously, not knowing what her intentions were. "Do you still remember the scene when you first met?" As soon as her voice fell, Xianxia's face changed. "The first time they met?" To be precise, the first time she met him was probably a very accidental situation. She had been fired from the company, and when she was returning home with some documents, she was accidentally hit by his car that was coming over. That was the first time she saw him. However, strictly speaking, the two of them met for the first time in a seaside villa. On a very unfamiliar bed. At that time, he was her employer and she was the surrogate mother on the contract. She was willing to sell her body for 5 million yuan just to give birth to a child for the Mu family. Because it was not suitable for artificial insemination, natural insemination was used instead. At first, she was extremely resistant, but the arrow was already on the bowstring, and there was no way out. She vaguely remembered the first time they met. She was lying on the bed with a red silk covering her face. She heard the sound of heavy footsteps outside the door. Pushing open the door, accompanied by the cold night wind, he walked in and sat on the bed. At that time, he was probably scrutinizing her carefully. Have no feelings for her. It was as if he was just an employer looking at his prey. Then, without any more pleasantries, he asked her to spread out her body to welcome him. Xianxia furrowed her brows. What a terrible first meeting. Chapter 2553. If possible, she did not want to recall it. Rong Xian was a little confused by her cold response and asked curiously, "You don't remember?" "It's been too long. I don't think I remember." Rong Xian replied carelessly. "Speaking of which, I don't remember the first time I met him either. That's because I grew up with him. When I was young and ignorant, he was already in my memories." Rong Xian began to recount the story. Because the Rong family and the Mu family had a good relationship, they lived close to each other. Therefore, the two of them grew up together. They were childhood sweethearts and knew each other very well. I really didn't expect Brother Zhe to get married so early. Rong Xian paused and suddenly asked, "Did you and Brother Zhe get married?" "Married?" "Yes." Rong Xian nodded and smiled innocently. "He is the successor of the Mu Group and the successor of Disheng Financial Group. As his wife, you must be the daughter of a prestigious family. I still don't know which family you are from." "The Yun family." "The Yun family?" Rong Xian was lost in thought. "I don't think I've ever heard of the Yun family in the capital. I'm not from a prestigious family." After a pause, Xianxia said calmly, "I'm just a child of an ordinary family. I'm not from a prestigious family." "A commoner?" Rong Xian suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Xianxia frowned and stared at her unhappily. Rong Xian quickly apologized. She did not know whether she had exclaimed because of a momentary loss of composure or if she had done it on purpose. She said guiltily, "Sure. I've been abroad for a long time, so I don't mean it. Please don't take it to heart. I'm a commoner." Xianxia said bluntly. "But what's so surprising about a commoner?" "I didn't mean to belittle a commoner." Rong Xian hurriedly explained. "I just find it unbelievable. According to the rules of the Mu family, it's forbidden to marry a commoner." "Forbidden?" Xianxia noticed this word. "That's right. The bigger a clan was, the more they paid attention to matching the social status of the two families. The Mu family was the wealthiest family in the capital. They had a big family business and a deep foundation. As the heir, the Mu family was especially particular about Brother Zhe's fiancée. Regarding family background, the Mu family had strict requirements. They had to go back 3 generations and get to the bottom of it. However, when I migrated to Italy, I still knew about some of the Mu family's activities during those years. At that time, she had heard that Brother Zhe's grandfather seemed to have stood his ground and picked a girl of unknown origin to be Brother Zhe's fiancée. The whole Mu family is against it. I heard that her name is Mu Wanru or something." Xianxia's eyelids twitched violently. However, this marriage didn't happen after that. Xianxia asked coldly, "Could it be that the rich and powerful place a lot of emphasis on matching families?" "Yes, very much." Chapter 2554. In my eyes, that piece of clothing is nothing, but for him, it's a month's worth of expenses. After a pause, Rong Xian smiled and said, there's not much surprise in being in a relationship with a commoner like him. He spent an entire semester's worth of living expenses and could only buy a box of foundation from me. There will never be any surprises in a relationship like this. It will be as plain as water, and I will have to adapt to his values, consumption, and lifestyle. Therefore, even if we love each other, we will still be defeated by the cruel reality. Yun Shishir was stunned when she heard this. So, Shishir, I really envy you. I can tell that Brother Zhe truly loves you. With his kind of life, he has always lived a life of luxury. But in order to adapt to you, he must have lowered his status to adapt to your life and your values. He must love you very much. Yu heard this but remained silent. Deep down, she found it funny. Was love really like this? Were values based on material conditions always right? Whether it was love or marriage, could it be that what a woman really wanted was just beautiful branded clothes, bags that cost millions, beautiful jewelry, and desires that could be satisfied with money? If love was really that simple, then it was really worth celebrating. In fact, whether it was love or marriage, as long as two people worked hard to integrate into each other, there would be enough tacit understanding. As long as there was love, there were no rules that could not be broken. As long as there was love, there was nothing that could not be overcome. Daddy was indeed a rich man, but after he got together with Mommy, he did not lower himself and adapted a lot for Mommy's sake. However, Rong Xian saw that Daddy was enjoying it. It was not because he was great, but because he loved him enough. Yun Shishir suddenly sneered, what are you hinting at? Rong Xian widened her eyes and hurriedly said, Shishir, I'm not hinting at anything. You're thinking too much again. Please don't mind me, I'm just being frank. Oh? I thought you were hinting that I don't have a background and status and that I'm not good enough for him. How could that be? Rong Xian laughed dryly, I didn't think that. In fact, I think you're great. Great? I think your courage is commendable. After all, for the sake of love, you're willing to break the rules and obsess over it. That's really amazing. I admire you. Yun Shishir did not reply immediately. Yu suddenly turned his head, and with a meaningful smile on his face, he casually said, Auntie Xianxian, I admire you, too. Hearing this, Rong Xian couldn't help but feel happy. She thought that the little boy was going to praise her, so she raised her head slightly and asked, Oh? What do you admire about me? The boy smiled gracefully. I admire your thick skin. Ahem, Yun Shishir choked on her son's words and coughed. The expression on Rong Xian's face suddenly froze. She was gritting her teeth with a faint smile. What? Of course, Rong Xian, of Daddy, Rong of Xian, you don't seem to know your limits at all. You keep sticking to Daddy and Mommy. Don't you think you're an eyesore? Rong Xian's face suddenly froze, and the muscles on her face twitched. This kid. What was he talking about? Chapter 2555. Oh, but it's only natural that you don't have such self-awareness. That's why I said I admire your shamelessness. Yu paused for a moment, then said in disgust, Daddy and Mommy finally have some alone time together, and you're still clinging to them. You're really a wet blanket. Rong Xian was finally completely enraged. No one had ever humiliated her like this before. She had never been humiliated by a child. She immediately tugged at the corners of her lips and sneered, shameless? I think you're the uneducated one. However, it's understandable that you're uneducated. After all, your mother is a commoner. How good can her son be? Although you inherited your handsome face from Brother Zhe, your temper is just like your mother's. Before she could finish speaking, only a pa sound could be heard. Without any warning, Yun Shishir raised her hand and gave her a tight slap across the face. Rong Xian, I'm warning you. Watch your mouth when you talk to my son. Rong Xian covered her burning cheek and stared at Yun Shishir in disbelief. Her eyes were full of anger. You hit me? Yun Shishir said coldly, your mouth is dirty. You deserve to be hit. Rong Xian was completely furious. She raised her hand and was about to slap her back. Yun Shishir, on the other hand, was quick to react. She held her hand tightly, and no matter how much she struggled, it was to no avail. Perhaps out of anger, she used a lot of strength. Rong Xian gritted her teeth and struggled, but she couldn't break free. She couldn't help but say angrily, Yun Shishir, let go of me. Rong Xian. I'm warning you, behave yourself. Yun Shishir sneered as she inched closer to her. Sweeping her expressionless gaze across her, she sneered. Why? Just because you're his childhood sweetheart, you feel smug, right? I'm a commoner, so my courage is commendable? Then what are you? You know that he has a family and his own happiness, but you're still clinging to him with ulterior motives. What are your intentions? Yun Shishir. Rong Xian shouted at her indignantly. You don't deserve him at all. Don't deserve him? You're just a commoner. Don't you know the rules of the rich? It's taboo for a noble to marry a commoner. Who do you think you are? How can you deserve Brother Zhe? If he were to marry the daughter of another prestigious family, I wouldn't have any complaints. But why is it that he married a commoner? Why you? Rong Xian poured out all her resentment and anger as if she was venting her anger. Her face immediately flushed red. She was so agitated that she started to ramble. You said you're an actress? Ha! How can a woman in the entertainment industry? From what I see, you must have cultivated some kind of bewitching technique and bewitched him. That's why he's so infatuated with you. Slap. Yun Xian's, Rong, Tion, Rong Xian. Rong Xian was slapped in the face. She felt so wrong that tears flowed down her cheeks. Why did you hit me? Because of your cheap mouth. Yun Shishir coldly reached out to grab her by the collar and pulled her toward her. She enunciated each word clearly. I want to remind you of one thing, in this world, no woman other than me is worthy of him. No woman is more worthy of him than I am. Do you understand? Her words were powerful and bold. Chapter 25:56. Wow, wow, wow. Yu Yu's eyes sparkled with excitement. Mommy, you're awesome. Mommy, you're awesome. Teach this bad woman a lesson. He clapped his hands excitedly, glanced at Rong Xian, who was in tears, and suddenly snorted. Bad woman, are you proud of yourself? Do you think you're so great? Your father is just an Italian entrepreneur of Chinese descent. However, since the financial crisis 5 years ago, his business has been hit hard and has been losing money for years. I think he won't be able to maintain his reputation for long. The so-called daughter of a rich family will become a down and out in a few years. Rong Xian froze. She looked at Yu Yu in disbelief, her eyes wide with shock, and asked in a trembling voice, How? How do you know all this? Yu Yu raised his eyebrows and asked casually, Why can't I know? Oh, I also know that your father is a famous entrepreneur on the surface, but in private, he has made a lot of investments, all of which have failed because of the lack of capital. He didn't even get a Series A financing. I don't know how long his debt-ridden company can last. Rong Xian was stunned and didn't speak. Yu Yu stared at her face slowly and suddenly sneered. As for your mother, do you think no one knows how much she has paid in order to climb to that position? Ah. The dark side of politics has always been known for its filth. Didn't she maintain a dirty relationship with many politicians in order to get to the top? Rong Xian was shocked. What he said was spot on. The Rong Corporation used to be a powerful enterprise in Italy. 10 years ago, it was listed in New York and had created amazing glory. As a Chinese company, the Rong Corporation had a certain prestige in Italy. However, since the financial crisis 5 years ago, the real business had been hit hard, and the Rome Corporation had also been affected. In the financial crisis 5 years ago, the Rome Corporation had almost gone bankrupt. They had tried many ways to stabilize the situation and barely managed to not declare bankruptcy. However, the price of maintaining the status quo was the lack of capital. The Rome family had not hesitated to sell their assets and continue to invest. The ratio of profit and loss was tragic. They were losing hundreds of millions of yuan every year, and their family's assets were almost emptied, but there was still no turnaround. What was even more frightening was that the Rome family was now heavily in debt. As for the latest round of financing, the financial street was more pessimistic about the future development of the Rome Corporation. However, the financing of a few million yuan was equivalent to nothing. Soon, Madame Rome would not be able to hold on any longer. This was also the reason why Rong Xian was so enthusiastic after meeting Mu Yaja. She thought that even if she couldn't continue their relationship, at least she could use the Mu group's resources to help the Rong group get through this difficult time. As for Yu Yu's mother, Rong Xian was too embarrassed to speak. The reason why she was able to work in the embassy was all because of her mother's connections, and the connections her mother had accumulated were all through dirty means. The political world was in a foul atmosphere. If he wanted to rise to the top, he would have to exhaust all means. However, these were all extremely secretive inside stories. Others had no way of knowing. He was just a child, so how did he know? Could it be that Mu Yaja had found out? Chapter 2557. Yun Shishir was also a little surprised. What Yu Yu said was really shocking, but judging from Rong Xian's surprised expression, it must be the truth. But how did he know all this? Yun Shishir was also a little surprised. Yu Yu continued coldly, the reason why you stick to Daddy is that you want Daddy to ignore his old relationship with you and use the Mu group's resources to help the Rong group through this difficult time. Isn't that right? Nonsense. Rong Xian felt guilty, but she couldn't defend herself. She only said, I don't think so. You're just a child. What nonsense are you talking about? Yu Yu smiled elegantly, but his tone was full of mockery. Don't you know in your heart whether it's nonsense or not? Anyway, I don't care to point it out. But what right do you have to laugh at Mommy's so-called commoner identity? What the hell? Rong Xian's face was livid. The Rong group is not as bad as you say. Oh, let's wait and see. Not as bad as that. As long as he used some means and put pressure on them, the Rong group would be declared bankrupt in less than 2 months. At that time, the Rong family would fall overnight and become a laughingstock. They would not be able to survive in Italy and would be bankrupt. Even if they wanted to escape from Italy, they would never have the opportunity to do so. The Rong family would be nothing but a joke. Last night, in the study, he sent Li Hanlin to investigate the Rong group, and the result made him feel cold. Rong Xian acted high and mighty like an arrogant young lady, but in the end, the Rong family was so ruined, and she was still so arrogant. However, it was impossible to let Rong Xian go so easily. Yu Yu played a little trick. Well, for example, he sent Li Hanlin to call the embassy in Italy and gave them a brief explanation. In less than 2 days, the procedures for Liang Qingyi's dismissal were being handled urgently. 3 days later, the dismissal announcement would be officially announced. Liang Qingyi, Rong Xian's mother. Once Liang Qingyi was dismissed, Rong Xian's political career would soon come to an end. How dare she bully his mommy? He was determined to make the Rong family go bankrupt. Let's see if she can still be so smug then. Yu Yu suddenly smiled elegantly, looking like a scheming little gentleman. She said with a smile, if you apologize to my mommy now, I may give the Rong Corporation a chance. Ridiculous. How could Rong Xian believe that a child could be so capable? She smiled coldly. It was impossible for her to lower her head and apologize to Yun Shishir. Her pride wouldn't allow it. Her pride wouldn't allow it. Humph, refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. After Yu finished speaking, he turned around and ordered the driver in fluent English, "Throw this woman out of the car." Rong Xian immediately understood and screamed, "How dare you? Do you think I wouldn't dare? If I dare to say it, then I dare to do it." The driver immediately stopped the car, opened the door, grabbed Rong Xian's hand and pulled her out of the car. Rong Xian struggled again and again, but she couldn't resist the man's strength and was pulled out of the car. Rong Xian was caught off guard and fell to the ground. Chapter 2558. Yunshishir was dumbfounded. Yu nagged, "Mommy, you were so polite to her. *tch like her." He stopped abruptly. Yu covered his mouth and realized that he had lost his composure. He quickly said, "Yes, no. You can't swear. You have to be elegant and dignified." Pfft, Yunshishir was amused by him. "What are you laughing at?" Yu looked at her reproachfully. Yunshishir asked curiously, "What are you trying to say?" She couldn't help but be curious. Yu said, "What I want to say is that a bad woman like her should be rougher. You don't have to be merciful. Okay. Mommy will remember that." Yunshishir couldn't help but pat his little head. She smiled dotingly and said, "Yu, you're Mommy's knight in shining armor." "I've always been Mommy's knight in shining armor." Yu raised his eyebrows proudly and said, "I'll be the first to stop anyone who bullies Mommy." "But how do you know that the Rong Corporation has fallen?" Yu snorted and said, "This information can be found with a simple check. I was wondering why she kept pestering us. So it's because of the Rong Corporation." Yu said, "No matter how powerful she is, she won't be able to turn the tide. Instead, she'll get herself into trouble. The Rong Corporation only exists in name. The Rong family is holding on bitterly, hoping for a chance to survive. However, it's all in vain. The Rong Corporation won't be able to recover. Sooner or later, they'll be declared bankrupt." Yunshishir was confused. She didn't quite understand, but she vaguely understood one thing: the Rong Corporation was hopeless. "Mommy, don't let a bad woman ruin your mood. Come out and have fun. Come, smile." Yunshishir's eyes narrowed at his words, revealing a mesmerizing smile. The mother and son looked at each other and smiled. When they arrived at the filming location, Yunshishir carried Yu out of the car. Wuxia walked over. Obviously, Rong Xian had already called him to complain. However, he didn't blame Yu. Instead, he glanced at him affectionately. "What happened just now?" Yu was the first to step forward and accuse her righteously. "That bad woman bullied Mommy. I couldn't stand it, so I got someone to throw her out of the car." Wuxia narrowed his eyes meaningfully. Just when Yu thought that he was going to reprimand him, the man smiled deeply and said with relief, "Well done." Little Chen, who was convulsing with laughter at the side, tried to hold back his laughter. Earlier, in the car, that bad woman called Daddy and said that Mommy bullied her. "Mommy, do you know what Daddy said?" "Huh? What did he say?" Yunshishir glanced at Wuxia. She couldn't help but wonder how Wuxia had reacted. Xiao Chen immediately said, "Daddy said that the evils we bring on ourselves are the hardest to bear." "Ha ha ha." Yu nodded happily and said earnestly, "Daddy, you did well." Xiao Chen danced as he described, "You don't know how much that bad woman cried on the phone just now. It was like the world was falling apart. I thought to myself that you deserved it. Who told you to bully Mommy? You deserve to be thrown out of the car." Yu couldn't help but tease him, "Chen, you're really something. You can even use idioms at your fingertips." Xiao Chen winked at him and said, "Yes. Yu taught me well." Taught him well, Yunshishir couldn't help but cover her face in shame. Chapter 2559. After the 2-day shooting period was over, the group of people went home. Upon returning home, Xianxia immediately rushed to report to the production team. However, the moment she reached the set, she heard Mushi talk non-stop about what had happened while she was away. "Xianxia, I have bad news and good news, which do you want to hear first?" Xianxia said, "Don't keep me in suspense, tell me both at once." "Okay. Then, I won't deliberately mystify you." Mushi paused and then lowered her voice. "Did you know? A few days ago, Lu Jingtian committed suicide by jumping off a building." Xianxia was stunned when she heard this. Her eyes widened in shock as she stared at her in disbelief. "What? You didn't hear wrongly, and you don't have to doubt the authenticity of this matter. Lu Jingtian's farewell ceremony was held 2 days ago, and many celebrities in the entertainment industry attended it. Why would she commit suicide out of the blue?" Xianxia could not help but find it strange. There's something fishy about this. Didn't her surgery go smoothly? Plus, before I left the country, I heard that she had safely passed the critical stage. Why would she commit suicide for no reason? Mushi shook her head blankly. This news came too suddenly. You were overseas at that time, so naturally, I couldn't tell you about it for fear of disturbing your mood. Besides, it's not a big deal to us. Qin Zhou has already posted a condolence message through your Weibo account. Xianxia was still in disbelief as she said in a low voice, "I just find it too strange. Lu Jingtian is so headstrong. Since the surgery went smoothly, why would she commit suicide? It's probably because she's too headstrong." Mushi paused for a moment before continuing. "Do you know? Qin Zhou, Director Ji, and I went to the hospital to deal with Lu Jingtian's funeral, and by chance, we saw her face." At this point, she took a deep breath and shook her head regretfully. "It's too tragic. That fire destroyed her face. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she was covered in cuts and bruises. Not only that, but there were also different degrees of burns on his body. The most serious was his legs. His muscles were burned and he had to endure great pain during the rehabilitation period. Perhaps it's because living like this is too painful, so he chose to end his life." Xianxia's heart skipped a beat. She could never understand what kind of pain it was. After all, the needle wasn't stuck in one's body, so how could one empathize with it? She suddenly thought of Yun Yecheng. He must be in a lot of pain, right? She couldn't help but feel a little worried. After Gong Jia brought her father back to the Gong family, he contacted her and told her that her father had been sent to the medical center and would be undergoing a long recovery period. Due to confidentiality, they could not make a video call, but Gong Jia assured her that he would update her on her father's condition at any time. Only then did she relax a little. "During the funeral ceremony, I saw President Lu's hair turn white overnight because of the pain of losing his daughter. Even though I used to hate Lu Jingtian, too, I actually felt bad for her. But now, he only felt pity for her. After all, the dead are the most important, and life and death are unpredictable. A fresh life was lost overnight." Xianxia sighed. Chapter 2560. At first, I couldn't figure it out, either. Since she's not even afraid of death, why is she still afraid of living? Xianxia suddenly frowned. That's because sometimes, living is scarier than dying. Mushi was stunned. If that's the bad news, then what's the good news? Xianxia deliberately avoided this topic that would make one feel complicated. The dead were already gone, so she did not want to probe too much into it. Mushi immediately reacted. A mysterious smile appeared on her face as she mischievously asked, "Guess what happened in the few days you weren't in the country?" "I'm asking you precisely because I don't know." Xianxia pushed her. "All right. Stop keeping me in suspense. Just tell me directly." "Sure, I'll tell you a piece of great news. Li Xian has been banned." Yun Shishir was not too surprised, but she was curious as to why she was banned. What happened? A few days after you left the country, a website exposed Li Xian's shady dealings with the unspoken rules. Moreover, a video has been circulating on the website. Because of this video, Li Xian's name has been tarnished. The more Yun Shishir listened, the more incredulous she felt. She immediately urged, "Are you still keeping me in suspense? Don't keep me in suspense. What video is it?" "It's a video of Li Xian being raped. TSK, TSK, TSK. It's so explicit." It turned out that not long ago, Li Xian's bed photos and nude videos were circulating on the internet. The netizens, who displayed their prowess, took screenshots of the video and compared them with Li Xian's photo. They then identified the female lead in the bed photos and video as Li Xian herself. Li Xian had a beauty mole on the tip of her nose, and the female lead in the video had a black mole on her nose. The female lead in the bed photos was also quickly verified to be Li Xian herself. Other than Li Xian, a man also appeared in the bed photos. And this man's identity was quickly uncovered by the netizens. She was one of the executives of Ease, Huang Jingxiu. Some people in the entertainment media suspected that Li Xian had offended a big boss in the underworld and was kidnapped and drugged. The ***** recorded a video and controlled Li Xian. Perhaps because Li Xian was restless, she angered the ***** of the *****. Therefore, the video was posted on the internet and attracted netizens to read it. The name Li Xian had become a cancer in the entertainment industry. This incident quickly attracted the attention of the General Administration of China Radio and Television. They issued a document to completely ban Ease and Li Xian. They also launched an investigation on Ease and purged the higher-ups. This incident caused a huge uproar, but it was suppressed by the government in the end. When Mu Shi first found out about this matter, she went to Qin Zhou's place to ask him about it. He then reprimanded her, "Work hard and don't poke your nose into things that have nothing to do with you." However, Qin Zhou's attitude just so happened to confirm her guess. "I'm guessing that Gu Xingze is behind all this. How is that possible?" Chapter 2561. If Gu Xingze wants to deal with Li Xian, it's just a matter of a word. It's probably because Li Xiang used Yuan Xingzhe to create hype by hook or by crook that he was completely infuriated by her perverse behavior. That's why he didn't hesitate to use his family's resources in the entertainment industry to suppress Li Xian. Yun Shishir furrowed her brows thoughtfully. She found it hard to imagine that Gu Xingze, who was gentle and refined, would resort to such cruel means. However, Li Xian had indeed gone overboard, and she had been angered at one point. "Shishir, don't you remember? In front of you, Xingze promised to deal with Li Xian properly. Just as you left the country, Li Xian got into trouble. However, after Li Xian got into trouble, not a single netizen sympathized with her. After all, on the 7th day of Li Xian's death, Li Xian used her to hype herself up and completely offended the netizens." Without waiting for Yun Shishir to speak, Mu Shi snorted again. "Serves her right. This Li Xian is unscrupulous in order to hype herself up. This can be considered a lesson for her." Yun Shishir casually said, "This person doesn't deserve any sympathy at all. She brought this upon herself. For the sake of fame, she did whatever it took. Now, retribution is here. Let's not talk about this unlucky person anymore." Mu Shi suddenly hugged her with a smile and asked excitedly, "How was it? Did the wedding photo shoot go smoothly?" "Yes, it went very smoothly." "Then, when are you going to announce your marriage to the media?" Yun Shishir was puzzled. "Why do we have to announce our marriage to the media?" Don't you know?" Mu Shi asked in surprise. "Usually, when celebrities get married, they have to announce their marriage to the media and the public. Firstly, such a happy event is naturally highly anticipated by the fans. Secondly, even if you don't announce it, the media will still try to find out. Since that's the case, why don't we just announce it directly? On the day of the wedding, we have to specially arrange seats for the media and invite them to report on the grand wedding. I don't seem to want to make such a big fuss. Xianxia added, it's better to keep a low profile for the wedding. Shi asked suspiciously, Xianxia, don't tell me you're thinking of getting married in secret? Can't I? Xianxia, you're so silly. Chairman Mu will definitely not agree. Xianxia's face suddenly turned red. He did promise to give me a wedding of the century, but after thinking about it, isn't that a little inappropriate? What's wrong? For example, the public will accuse us of deliberately flaunting our wealth and holding such a big wedding. It's too extravagant. The keyboard warriors on the internet were very scary. Moral kidnapping was not uncommon. They would definitely accuse her of being heartless. She could even imagine the anger of the netizens. For example, an actress's wedding costs so much. For example, Xianxia marrying into a rich family in a high-profile manner and flaunting her wealth at the wedding. Just the thought of it was scary. You don't have to worry about this. Shi said. Just leave it to Qin Zhou to handle. As long as the public relations is in place and the media is given a sum of money, they'll definitely write in a direction that's favorable to you. Oh, Shi asked curiously, has Chairman Mu already started planning the wedding? I don't know. Chapter 2562. Xianxia raised her hands in surrender. Shi, please spare me. I'm inexperienced and don't know what to prepare for a wedding. After all, this is my first time doing it. Shi's lips twitched. Oh, dear. I'm so anxious. The eunuch is more anxious than the emperor. Go back and have a good discussion with Chairman Mu. Got it. At the studio. Gu Xingzi was taking a nap in the lounge when someone knocked on the door. Come in. An assistant pushed the door open and walked in. Seeing him resting, he was startled. Mr. Gu, am I disturbing your rest? What's the matter? Oh, it's like this. The assistant came over and handed him a document. Li Xian's matter has been settled. From now on, her name will completely disappear from the public eye. Okay, got it. Gu Xingzi suddenly opened his eyes. Where is she? Because the matter has blown up, the CCTV is investigating her. She's now under the CCTV's control. If the investigation proves to be serious, she'll probably be jailed for a period of time. Help me pass a message to the CCTV to deal with her severely. Yes, sir. The assistant immediately understood. Gu Xingzi then closed his eyes again. Not daring to disturb him, the assistant hurriedly retreated. After the door closed, Gu Xingzi suddenly opened his eyes again. A cold glint flashed in the depths of his eyes as he smirked. Li Xian. She's too inexperienced to fight with me. In the basement of the villa. Hearing someone knocking on the door, Yun-na got up and walked to the door. She opened the peephole and saw a woman standing outside. She immediately opened the door. As soon as the door was opened, the woman in a trench coat immediately entered, closed the door behind her, and locked it. Yun-na sized up the woman and suddenly felt a little wary. Why are you here? Standing in front of her, the woman gracefully took off her hat and hung it on the side. She then turned around and saw Ji Yan's exquisite face. It hasn't been peaceful recently. You're not allowed to go anywhere except here, understand? Yun-na's expression froze. What happened? Lu Jingtian's incident has blown up. The police are investigating this matter and are trying their best to find the culprit. Ji Yan paused for a moment and then said with a frown, I don't know what evidence the police have. In short, they've been conducting a lot of investigations recently, so don't show up for the time being. Hearing this, Yun-na smiled disdainfully. Don't worry, the police definitely won't have any evidence related to me. Are you that confident? Of course. I'm a cautious person. I won't walk right into a trap. Ji Yen was taken aback, and her gaze could not help but fall on her hands. The fingerprints on all 10 fingers of the pair of hands were thoroughly erased using the method of burning and burning. At first, she was shocked when she saw the pair of hands. She remembered asking Yun Na, "What happened to your hands?" Yun Na replied, "In order to hide my identity, I burned all my fingerprints." Burn? Ji Yen was astonished. How did you burn it? In the beginning, use a knife to cut it. Later, use an iron, tongs, and a flintlock. Ji Yen could not help but shudder when she heard that. How cruel. Doesn't it hurt? Yun Na gritted her teeth. It doesn't hurt? How can it not hurt? Chapter 2563. Yun Na raised her head, and her eyes suddenly became extremely cold. Of course it hurts. But compared to the despair of being in hell, this little bit of pain is nothing. The reason she burned her fingerprints was to cover up her identity. Secondly, it was for revenge. Yes. She had been reborn, and the meaning of her life was revenge. Ji Yan's heart suddenly turned cold, and she felt even more terrified. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart, yet she burned her fingerprints. What a vicious and merciless woman. She was so ruthless to herself, let alone to others. This woman was definitely a dangerous person. However, the two of them were now in the same boat and were using each other. Yun Na was using her to get protection, and she was using Yun Na to get revenge. Yes, they had a common enemy. Yun Xianxia, she was determined to eradicate this woman. Back then, she had a bright future ahead of her. However, because of a single mistake, she was caught red-handed and her bright future was destroyed just like that. She could not accept it. Especially when she saw how bright Yun Xianxia was in the entertainment industry and how her career was thriving. Not only did the movie she starred in achieve a grand slam at the box office, but she also won an important award at the film festival. For a moment, she was in the limelight. She was jealous when she saw that. Therefore, she made up her mind to take back everything that originally belonged to her with her own hands. Ji Yen sat down on the bed and suddenly said, Yun Xianxia just returned to the country yesterday. She returned to the country? Yun Na looked a little surprised. Where did she go before? She told the crew that she was on leave. I didn't know where she was until she returned to the country. I happened to pass by her lounge and heard her and her assistant talking about the wedding photos. Ji Yen paused and said, she probably went abroad to take wedding photos. Wedding photos? When Yun Na heard this, an extremely excited expression suddenly appeared on her face. Ha! Going abroad to take wedding photos is so glorious. How blissful. The smile on her face became even colder and more terrifying. It even had a hint of malevolence. Yun Xianxia, laugh all you want. Be proud of yourself. The more blissful you are, the more despair you will feel once you are destroyed. Just thinking about crushing the person who was immersed in happiness with her own hands made Yun Na tremble with excitement. Filled with excitement, she actually let out a cold laugh. What are you laughing at? Ji Yen shuddered. Don't you think it's interesting? Yun Na suddenly sneered and turned around. She stared fixedly at her face and said with a ferocious expression, don't you think she's very glorious right now? She had a successful career and a happy family. Soon, she would be holding a grand wedding. The more blissful it is, the more excited I am. I'm really looking forward to seeing her expression when she sees me. When she died in my hands, what kind of expression did she have? Just imagining it made my blood boil. I'm really looking forward to it. You. Ji Yen looked at Yun Na, who was on the verge of going berserk, in shock. Oh. Oh right. Yun Na suddenly turned around and interrupted her. There's also that Yuntianyu. That little bee asterisk starred, haha. Back then, he was the one who caused me to be like this. Sooner or later, I'll let him have a taste of being thrown into the ice-cold sea and being eaten by a school of fish. Chapter 2564. She fell into the sea and struggled desperately in the waves. The fishes surrounded her and gnawed at her skin. The excruciating pain was still unforgettable. All her hatred was concentrated on the name Yuntianyu. Sooner or later, she would strangle this little bee asterisk star to death. No. Wouldn't it be letting him off easy by hurting him like this? She wanted to tie him up and throw him into the sea alive to let him have a taste of despair. Yun Na, don't show your face during this period, or else your identity will be easily exposed. Ji Yen reminded her repeatedly. Yun Na replied coldly, I know. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. It's good that you know what you're doing. With that, she stood up and walked toward the door. Yun Na suddenly called out, Yen Bingqing. Ji Yen turned around abruptly and glared at her coldly. Didn't I warn you not to call me by that name again? Yen Bingqing is dead, and I'm Ji Yen now. Don't mention that name again. However, the corners of Yun Na's lips twitched into a smile that was neither cold nor warm. Don't tell me that no one doubts your true identity when you return to the entertainment industry as Ji Yen? Hearing this, Ji Yan's lips curled into a cold smirk. So what if they suspect me? I've completely erased Yen Bingqing's identity. Even if they suspect me, they can't confirm my identity. She didn't suspect you either? Ji Yen naturally knew who the she Yun Na was referring to. Yun Shusher? Ji Yen smiled nonchalantly and turned to look at her. When I first appeared on set, her expression when she saw me was obviously suspicious. What's wrong? Is there a problem? I must warn you, Yun Shusher isn't scary. What's scary is the child behind her and Mu Yaja. Child? Ji Yen was stunned for a moment, but she quickly reacted as the image of Yuntianyo's elegant and adorable face surfaced in her mind. Her lips curled into a cold smile, but her voice turned frosty in an instant. I'll be on my guard even if you don't remind me. This child is indeed not simple. Not only is he not simple, this child is even more capable than his father. He is much more powerful than you think. I've been trying my best to investigate this child's background, but I haven't had any leads. Can you help me investigate? I can't. Why? Ji Yen frowned. Because I can't figure out the child's origin either. How laughable. A 7-year-old child could actually make people so fearful. If she hadn't seen his methods with her own eyes, it was really hard to imagine that the seemingly elegant and cute child actually had such a cold and ruthless side. Unbelievably, she had exhausted all means to investigate that child called Yun Tianyu, but to no avail. It was very scary. I'm guessing that this child has already suspected me through Yun Yeqing's incident. Yun Na paused for a moment and said, so, you have to be vigilant as well. Otherwise, the slightest carelessness would cause our efforts to go to waste. I understand. After saying that, she turned around and left the room. Yun Na went forward and locked the door from the inside. She then opened the peephole and warily watched Ji Yan's back as she left. Only then did she return to her bed. Chapter 2565. The filming of Extreme Youth was extremely arduous. The harshness of the director's team made all the actors complain and complain, but Yun Shusher didn't care. Compared to the harshness of the 2 gold medal directors, Lin Fengtian and Gu Xiaoyang, this crew was already extremely humane. Perhaps, especially after experiencing the torture of Lin Fengtian, she had completely adapted to such a fast-paced shooting. The relationship in the crew was relatively harmonious, perhaps because she was no longer the same as before. After all, when she was still a newcomer in the crew of The Green Apple and Lethal Beauty, most of the actors and even the staff in the crew were flattering and trampling on the weak, so they didn't like her. But now, things were different. With billions of box office sales, she was the best newcomer of the year, and her popularity was increasing day by day. Now, she had already jumped to the top of the list of popular young actresses. Now that Lethal Beauty was a hit, it also boosted her popularity. Therefore, most of the people in the crew were in awe of her. What surprised the staff even more was that although Xianxia came from a high family and became famous in the entertainment industry with a single movie, she didn't put on any airs and was more amiable to everyone. She was completely unlike those actresses who were exposed overnight and acted like a big shot because of their popularity and didn't put others in their eyes. Therefore, the staff liked to get along with her. They were very harmonious. However, Xianxia was more concerned about Ji Yan's mysterious identity. Rumors about Ji Yan were everywhere on the internet. Many netizens speculated that Ji Yan was Yan Bingqing, who had disappeared for a long time. Yan Bingqing disappeared from the public eye after the slapping scene in The Green Apple was exposed. After that, there was no news about her. Many people speculated that Yan Bingqing must have temporarily retired from the entertainment industry and later reappeared as a newcomer through plastic surgery to change her facial features. Her purpose was to cover up her dirty past. These were all the speculations of the netizens. However, when Xianxia got close to Ji Yan, she was surprised to find that there were many differences between Ji Yan and Yan Bingqing. Yan Bingqing was extremely high profile. Relying on her status as an A-list actress, she acted like a big shot, bullied the staff, and even dared to openly challenge the director. Ji Yan, on the other hand, got along with every staff member, was polite and gentle. Xianxia had seen Ji Yan greeting a cleaning lady with a smile. This was something that Yan Bingqing couldn't do. However, when Xianxia recalled the little bits of her interactions with Yan, she could always find similarities between her and Yan. A person's appearance could be changed. But a person's voice. When she smiled, Xianxia's voice, Xia, and Xianxia's voice, Xia's and Xia's. There were several times when she was curious and wanted to find out the truth, but when she faced Ji Yan, she found her speculations to be laughable. What if it wasn't her? She questioned the real person after listening to the rumors on the internet. If the other party denied it, wouldn't the situation be very awkward? Maybe she deliberately made herself look like Yan Bingqing to gain popularity? So what if she's Yan Bingqing? Chapter 2566. Ji Yan was also very polite to her and never made things difficult for her. Moreover, whether Ji Yan was Yan Bingqing or not, what did it have to do with her? All she needed to do was act. Hence, Xianxia did not take the matter to heart. On this day, after she finished filming, she was about to pack up and go home when Ji Yan suddenly pushed open the door of her dressing room, walked up to her, and said with a smile, "Xianxia, have you finished filming your scenes?" Xianxia turned to look at her and nodded gently. Yes. After a pause, she asked in confusion, "What's wrong? Is something the matter?" Ji Yan did not have many scenes with her when she was on set, so she did not deliberately get close to her and rarely spoke to her. Ji Yan said, "It may be a little presumptuous of me to say this, but it's my birthday today. Today is my birthday. Are you willing to attend my birthday party? I know you're in a hurry to go home, but I've already invited the whole crew. If I miss you, I'm afraid there will be gossip among the crew." Xianxia was speechless. Well, you know, in the production crew, sometimes the staff will talk behind my back. If you don't come to my birthday party, I'm worried that someone will spread the news that I don't get along with you. If the media catches wind of this, I don't know what kind of nonsense they'll write. If you're really in a hurry, you can go home early. Xianxia looked a little hesitant. Ji Yan's thoughtful words made it impossible for her to refuse. Indeed, if she did not show up, it was inevitable that someone with ulterior motives would make things difficult for her. Hence, she said softly, "I can attend, but your news came too suddenly. I didn't even know it's your birthday today, so I came empty-handed. I didn't even prepare a gift. It's okay. Your presence is already the best gift I can give you. Ji Yan smiled, tilted her head, and pouted. I deliberately announced it at the last minute so that a bunch of people won't be in a hurry to prepare a gift and delay the filming. Actually, there's no need to prepare a gift. The crew has already ordered a cake. It's a party, so the more the merrier. Unspoken smiled. Since you've said so, how can I refuse? What time is the party? We'll have to wait until the crew finishes filming today's episode. Ji Yan paused for a moment and thought for a while. Then, she suddenly said, how about you leave at 8? Yes. Ji Yan was touched. Thank you, Sure. I didn't expect you to be willing to come to my birthday party. What are you saying? Then, you can arrange your own time first. I still have my scenes later, so I'll get to work first. Ji Yan bade her farewell and left. After she left the room, the smile on Unspoken's face gradually faded. It doesn't look like it. At such a close distance, she was completely different from the arrogant and spoiled Yan Bingqing in his impression. Perhaps, she was overthinking things. At 7:00 in the evening, the party started on time at a bar near the photography studio. With the exception of Gu Xingzi, all the crew members were present. Ji Yan was so generous that she booked the entire second floor. When everyone arrived, they were about to start the party, but Ji Yan suddenly stood up and said mysteriously, "Wait a minute, there are still some people who haven't arrived yet." Everyone was curious. Who is it? Chapter 2567. The director said, Ji Yan, I forgot to tell you that Xingzhe will not be coming as soon as the shoot is over. I know. I didn't expect him to show up anyway. Ji Yan smiled. There's still a family member who hasn't arrived yet. Family member? What family member? Everyone looked at each other, then at the extremely ambiguous and shy expression on Ji Yan's face. All of a sudden, they understood what she meant by family members. Oh? Ji Yan, you have a boyfriend? That's shocking news. The assistant director slapped his thigh pretentiously. I didn't expect the beautiful Ji Yan to already be taken. Oh, it seems that I'm hopeless. Hua Jin suddenly leaned over to Unspoken's side and whispered, Don't tell me he's her sugar daddy. Unspoken raised her eyelids and nudged him with her elbow. Don't gossip. I'm just kidding, Hua Jin said, feeling wronged. Sure, you're so serious and boring. Can't she have a proper boyfriend? Why are you siding with her? Are you stupid? Unspoken cursed inwardly. It was just that she did not pay much attention to Ji Yan and was not interested in her gossip. Hua Jin suddenly said, Say, what kind of mentality do you think a man has when he's still with his woman when he knows that she's a sugar daddy? Unspoken said matter-of-factly, Of course, he's obviously toying with her. Bingo. Hua Jin snapped his fingers. I'm looking forward to seeing who Ji Yan's boyfriend is. We'll see it soon. Hua Jin was a little excited. Let's wait and see. Unspoken rubbed her forehead. When did this guy become so nosy? At 7:15 p.m. Ji Yan looked at the time and hurriedly walked to the side to make a phone call. Half a minute later, she came back excitedly and said shyly, He said he's already at the entrance of the bar. Oh. Everyone cheered. One of the female celebrities teased, Look at how excited Ji Yan is. Her face is all red. Ji Yan, you have to be merciful today. There are a lot of single dogs in the crew, so don't spread too much dog food. I've been eating too much dog food recently. I'm a little full. The crowd burst into laughter again. Ji Yan asked shyly, What? Don't worry, I'll try not to show off my love today. Yes. That's right. The director nodded. Even if you want to show off your love, you have to wait until you enter the hotel." The crowd booed. "Director, don't be so explicit." "Exactly. Ji Yan will be shy." However, the director didn't think much of it. "We're all adults. There's no harm in speaking with a little color." Everyone laughed again. Amidst the laughter, someone suddenly shouted, "There's a man walking down the stairs. He's so handsome." "Ji Yan, is that your boyfriend?" Ji Yan turned around at once, and when she saw who it was, she blushed and went up to greet him. Out of curiosity, Xianxia also looked in the direction Ji Yan ran to, only to be stunned by what she saw. The man was dressed casually. Although it was not very formal, he had handsome facial features and a good temperament, giving him a unique demeanor. Chapter 2568. The reason why she was so surprised was that the man was none other than Gao Nan. Gao Nan, Xiao Shue's boyfriend. A question popped up in her mind. Did he break up with her? That can't be, right? Ever since Xiao Shui fell in love, she transformed from a careless girl into a shy woman. She was so immersed in love that she rarely pestered her like before. Even when they occasionally communicated on WeChat, it was all about Gao Nan. There was no doubt that Xiao Shui had fallen in love, which made Xianxia feel a little complicated. She had tried to persuade her friend by beating around the bush and telling her to see a man's true colors and not give him her heart easily. Otherwise, she would be in great pain if she was betrayed. However, Xiao Shui complained about her and even spoke up for Gao Nan, praising him for being considerate and gentle and being a good boyfriend that was hard to come by. Xianxia could only give up, thinking that Gao Nan had toned down a lot after the class reunion. However, there was a saying that a dog could not change its spots. Some time ago, Xiao Shui chatted with her on WeChat about the progress of her relationship with Gao Nan. She shyly said that the two had met each other's parents and were satisfied with each other. If there were no accidents, they would hold their wedding next year. It would take more than 10 days. Now, Gao Nan is attending a private party as Ji Yan's boyfriend? What is Xiao Shui, then? Don't tell me that he has already broken up with her? Judging from how intimate they are, the two must have been dating for some time. Then, has this guy betrayed Xiao Shui and cheated on her? With countless thoughts running through her mind, Xianxia felt a little uneasy. She suddenly realized that this matter had become very tricky. She stared at Gao Nan in disbelief, hoping that it was just a coincidence. However, when Ji Yan ran to his side and held his arm intimately, Xianxia could no longer sit still. She clenched her fists and breathed heavily. If not for her excellent self-control, she would have already stood up, rushed up, and slapped Gao Nan's face. Hua Jin sensed that there was something wrong with her aura and looked at her suspiciously. "Xia, what's wrong with you?" Xianxia didn't have time to respond to him. She immediately took out her phone. After thinking about it, she found Xiao Shui on WeChat and sent her a message. "How have you been? How are you and your boyfriend doing?" She did not go straight to the point and say that she had seen Gao Nan with another woman. After all, she needed to clarify their relationship first. What if they broke up? Hence, it was not strange for him to find a new lover. Xiao Shui didn't reply immediately. Xianxia suddenly became nervous. Could it be that they really broke up? At this point, Ji Yan had already walked over with her boyfriend's arm. When they were in front of everyone, she introduced him with a smile. "Let me introduce you to my boyfriend, Gao Nan. We've been dating for 2 months. 2 months. A month ago, Xiao Shui excitedly told her on WeChat that she and Gao Nan had met his parents, but this guy was already with Ji Yan at that time? What is this? Ji Yan was his girlfriend, and he even appeared here as her boyfriend. How dignified. What about Xiao Shui, then? Chapter 2569. What does he take Xiao Shui for? Xianxia could not help feeling furious. She raised her head and glared fiercely at Gao Nan. The latter also seemed to have sensed a sharp gaze coming from a certain corner. He could not help but look in the direction of the gaze. When he saw that it was her, his face was also stunned for a moment. He did not expect that she would also appear in such an occasion. His entire body was stunned. Hua Jin saw that Yun Shishir's expression was a little off, so he immediately hugged her shoulders gently. "Shishir, what's wrong?" Only then did Yun Shishir realize that she could not show her emotions in front of everyone. Some things must be resolved in private. Hence, she immediately restrained her expression. Gao Nan stared at her intently and suddenly understood why she was angry at him. He curled his lips into a heartless smile and said to Ji Yen, "Let's introduce everyone." Ji Yen immediately introduced everyone enthusiastically. When it came to Yun Shishir, Ji Yen took Gao Nan's arm and walked to him. "Gao Nan, this is Yun Shishir. You should know her, right? Her role in The Green Apple created a phenomenon at the box office. Shishir is also a big star now, isn't she?" Gao Nan gave a fake smile and nodded slightly. "Yes, I know her. I've even watched her movie. With Xiao Shui." Back then, when Xiao Shui pestered him to watch The Green Apple, he complained for a while. He did not like to watch melodramatic romance dramas, but he accompanied her to the cinema because he wanted to take care of her. He did not expect that it would be a movie starring Yun Shishir. "Shishir, this is Gao Nan, my boyfriend." Yun Shishir raised an eyebrow and tried to restrain her anger. "So, you're Ji Yan's boyfriend? You've been dating for 2 months?" "Yes, that's right." Ji Yan did not sense the strangeness in the conversation at all. She happily snuggled up to his shoulder and smiled. "We met at a bar." "Bar? What a great place to hunt for beauties." All of a sudden, Yun Shishir felt a little breathless and her heart was a little stuffy. She glanced at Ji Yen and Gao Nan before gritting her teeth and smiling. "I wish you all the best. Ji Yen, your boyfriend is very handsome." The noise of the bar muffled her angry gnashing of her teeth. All he heard was a blessing. Ji Yen blushed and said, "Shishir, thank you." From the beginning to the end, Gao Nan stared at her without batting an eyelid. Suddenly, a meaningful smile appeared on his face, and he turned his head away. Ji Yen then took his arm and introduced him to the rest of the crew one by one. After Gao Nan arrived, the party officially began. Ji Yen did not specifically introduce Gao Nan's noble identity, but everyone in the crew was perceptive enough to know that he came from a prestigious family just by looking at his extraordinary aura. As the party began, a few bottles of imported wine were opened. Accompanied by the loud music in the bar, the atmosphere suddenly reached its climax. Amidst the applause, Yun Shishir vaguely sensed a pair of eyes on her. She looked up and happened to meet Gao Nan's scrutinizing gaze. Chapter 2570. Under the crowd's instigation, Yun Shishir was dragged to play Civ. She repeatedly refused, saying that she was allergic to alcohol, but the crowd did not buy it. "You play, your assistant will drink on your behalf." Huh? She felt that she had been unjustly implicated, but due to the situation, she could only bite the bullet and accept it. She then pitifully told Yun Shishir, "Shishir, you must take it easy, I can't hold my liquor well either." Hua Jin could not help but snicker. Yun Shishir nodded. However, with Gao Nan around, she was not in the mood to play. Her mind was not on the game at all, and her thoughts were wandering. In one round, she caused her assistant to drink more than 3 glasses of wine and a few glasses of beer. The assistant's face turned red from drinking. She waved her hand and told her that she could not continue. If she drank any more, she would surely get drunk. Yun Shishir's heart ached and she immediately said, "I really don't know how to play. Why don't I not participate in your game? If I insist on playing, a dabbler like me will only spoil your fun." Only then did the crowd give up and stop forcing her to play. Gao Nan, on the other hand, displayed his extraordinary skills and alcohol tolerance in the game, which made everyone gasp in admiration. Unspoken looked at him silently. Just then, her phone vibrated. She took it out and saw that Xiao Shui had replied to her message. Very good. What's wrong? A few seconds later, she sent another message. You rarely ask about him, what's wrong? Looking at her friend's reply, Unspoken gripped her phone tightly and looked at Gao Nan again. She saw that he seemed to have guessed who she was texting, for a smug and cold smile appeared on his face. In her eyes, such a smile was extremely detestable. Under her cold gaze, Ji Yan, who was beside Gao Nan, suddenly lost. After drinking a glass of wine, she threw herself into Gao Nan's arms and acted coquettishly. In front of her and everyone else, Gao Nan kissed her hard on the lips, but his gaze remained on her from beginning to end. It was like an arrogant show-off, but also a silent provocation. Unspoken was so angry that her whole body stiffened. Hua Jin, who was also very sharp, immediately sensed the confusing atmosphere between the two. He glanced at her, only to see her glaring daggers at the man. He then looked at the man, who was also looking at her nonchalantly. He tugged at Unspoken's sleeve and asked curiously, "Shursher, what's wrong? You know him?" "Not only know him." Unspoken gritted her teeth in reply. Hua Jin was about to continue his questioning when Mu Shi, who was standing at the side, suddenly stood up and covered her mouth. Unspoken's attention returned to her as she hurriedly stood up. "Do you want to throw up?" Mu Shi covered her mouth and did not speak, nodding her head with a disheveled expression. "I'll take you to the bathroom." Unspoken hugged her shoulder and led her to the washroom. Once they reached the washroom, Mu Shi rushed in. Unspoken stood outside the door and did not enter. She had a hunch that the man would come looking for her, so she decided to wait outside the washroom. Sure enough, half a minute later, Gao Nan appeared behind her. "I didn't expect to see you here today." "How rare." His frivolous opening was very much in line with his style. Unspoken turned around abruptly and glared at him. She sneered. "Is Ji Yan really your girlfriend?" "It's as you've seen," he said airily. Without any hypocritical denial or superfluous explanation, he directly admitted the truth. B****. Chapter 2571. Unspoken was agitated at once. Feeling indignant for her friend, she asked angrily, "What about Xiao Shui, then? Who does she think she is?" Gao Nan spoke again, but this time, it was an extremely cold word. "Girlfriend." Unspoken was stunned in disbelief when she heard that. Then, she laughed in anger. "Girlfriend? You're really something, Gao Nan. You have 2 girlfriends? Does Xiao Shui know about this? Oh. Are you feeling indignant for her?" Gao Nan raised a brow with a nonchalant look, as if this matter was not worth any surprise or doubt. Instead, it was a matter of course. Unspoken continued. "Xiao Shui is deeply in love with you. She's been immersed in her love with you all this while. So, is this how you repay her feelings?" Gao Nan laughed. "I'll marry her." "What?" "Marrying her is the best way to repay her feelings." As he said that, his lips curled into a mocking smile. "She doesn't know about this, but it doesn't matter even if she does." After a pause, he looked at her and asked, "If you intend to tell her about this, I don't mind." I'm looking forward to seeing her expression when she learns about this." He. "It's quite interesting just thinking about it." B****. Unspoken could not control her anger. She took a step forward and raised her hand at him. Gao Nan quickly grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his embrace. His other hand pinched her waist suggestively. Unspoken struggled angrily, but she could not break free from his grip due to the difference in their physical strength. "Why are you so angry?" Gao Nan was puzzled. Those who don't know the situation will think that you're jealous of me. Shameless. Xianxia struggled again and gritted her teeth. If you don't love her, why did you marry her? Marriage has nothing to do with love. Gao Nan recounted the truth expressionlessly. As long as my parents are satisfied, I can marry any woman, but no matter who she is, she has no right to interfere with my private life. Xiao Shui is no exception. Gao Nan, I want you to break up with her. Xianxia ordered word by word. Why? Because I won't allow you to trample on her feelings. I won't allow you to let her down and play with her. The man chuckled as if mocking her naivety and sighed. Sisterly love is really deep. I'm almost touched by you. Let go. No. The man smiled wickedly. Look carefully, you're the one who threw yourself into my arms. You're really shameless. Well said. Instead, the man laughed and grabbed her chin to enjoy the anger on her face. Do you know how cute you look when you're angry? Especially the look in your eyes, it's so seductive. He enjoyed the anger on her face. Her pair of willowy eyebrows were furrowed into an extremely elegant angle due to her anger, exuding an indescribable sense of beauty. I'm warning you for the last time, let go. Xianxia's expression was frosty. Gao Nan was suddenly attracted by the resplendent ring on her hand. He could not help but look over and was surprised to see a diamond ring on her ring finger. You're engaged? Chapter 2572. Xianxia glared at him without saying a word. Oh, I remember now. Didn't the Mu group issue an announcement some time ago? Mu Yaja was banished by the Mu family, and his position was taken over by someone else. He. Xianxia, has your dream of marrying into a wealthy family been completely shattered? Gao Nan usually did not pay attention to the happenings in the business world, but he was aware that Mu Yanqing had taken over the CEO's position. Hence, he was gloating over the latter's misfortune. Mu Yaja was such a proud man, but after this incident, he suddenly fell from the top to the bottom. He was probably smashed to pieces. He did not expect to meet him again at such an occasion. Gao Nan felt that this was probably a godsend. He had been coveting this woman for a long time and had always wanted to befriend her. However, his uncle had previously warned him that the Mu family was a very scary existence and that he should not have any thoughts about Mu Yaja's woman. Therefore, he restrained his ambition and didn't place too much hope on her. However, now that Mu Yaja had lost his power, this was probably the best opportunity, right? Hence, when he was sizing her up at the party earlier, he was silently thinking about how to make his move. Even though he was hugging and kissing another woman, at that time, only he knew in his heart what he really wanted. What was his ambition? Gao Nan was a standard hedonistic son. He was indifferent to his career, but he was an insufferably arrogant prodigal when it came to love. Whenever he fancied a woman, he would pounce on her like a cheetah and make her his. Almost no woman could escape from his clutches. Xianxia was the first exception. However, this exception did not make him wait for too long. Was this not an opportunity? Seeing the prey he had coveted for so long throwing herself into his arms, he was extremely pleased. Gao Nan suddenly approached her. His gaze landed on her delicate and alluring lips, and the ambition in his eyes could no longer be concealed. Xianxia felt disgusted at the sight of him and tried to resist, but his grip was so strong that she could not break free at all. Let go. Xianxia, you can't run away. Mu Yaja has lost his power, so it's my turn to take over. The man's eyes were as ferocious as a wild beast's. I want you. Don't even think about it. Xianxia sneered. I will tell Xiao Shui about your evil deeds. I'll make her open her eyes and see that you're a complete bastard. Okay. Let's wait and see. Anyway, I'm already tired of her. If it weren't for her fantasizing about marrying me all day long, do you think I would want to marry her? You. Xianxia fumed. Gao Nan. Don't go too far. How can you bear to hurt Xiao Shui? Since you don't love her, then please don't hurt her. This is the first time Xiao Shui has fallen into such a deep relationship. You bastard, you will suffer retribution. Huh? Retribution? You're so naive to believe in retribution, though. Yunshusher, you're too naive. Then, I'll have to trouble you to quickly get her to leave me and stop pestering me. Otherwise, I'll be troubled, too. Do you really think I like her? I'm just playing around. Who would like a chaste woman? What do you mean? Chapter 2573. What do you mean? We've been together for so long, but apart from holding hands and kissing, she's never taken things further with me. You're telling me that this is love? What day and age are we living in? She's still insisting on not having sex before marriage? As if struck by lightning, Yunshusher was thoroughly enraged. That's because she cares about you too much and doesn't want to be looked down upon, so she's doing this. You're too disgusting. The man laughed. Well then, I'm going to do something even more disgusting next. With that, he pulled her into his arms and tried to kiss her. Yunshusher struggled repeatedly, kicking and kicking him. Then, they vaguely heard the sound of hurried footsteps approaching. Immediately after, they heard Huajin's angry bellow. B*****. Let go of her. Hearing the voice, Gao Nan could not help but turn his head vigilantly. However, before he could react, Huajin's fist had already landed on his face. Bang! A loud sound was heard. Gao Nan was sent flying against the wall. The impact was so strong that Yunshusher was also affected and fell to the ground. When Huajin saw this, he quickly rushed over, hugged her, and helped her up. The two turned to look at Gao Nan, who was leaning against the wall and gently wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. Huajin's punch had actually broken the corner of his lip. Gao Nan spat a mouthful of blood on the ground and then rushed over to throw a punch at him. Huajin could have dodged the punch, but he suddenly realized that if he did, he would implicate the person behind him. Gritting his teeth, he took the punch and pushed Yunshusher aside. Be careful. Gao Nan scolded, who do you think you are? How dare you hit me? Huajin glared at him furiously. Earlier, when he saw Yunshusher leaving with Mu Shi in her arms, Gao Nan followed them. After sitting there for a while, seeing that Yunshusher did not return after a long time, he got worried and followed her. However, when he saw the scene of Gao Nan pestering Yunshusher, just the thought of his restless hands roaming all over her body made him furious. ****. Fury flashed in Huajin's eyes as he charged forward again. A ferocious fist landed on the man's face, knocking out one of his teeth in an instant. Ugh, Gao Nan groaned in pain. Without caring about his injury, he started fighting with Huajin. Although Huajin was a typical slender teenager, Gao Nan, on the other hand, was obviously well trained. His casual shirt tightened as he moved, vaguely revealing his muscular muscles. Huajin, on the other hand, was clearly unafraid of the man's anger. Glaring at the latter, he could not conceal his murderous aura and completely released it. Meanwhile, Gao Nan's body tensed up as his face darkened. His expression clearly indicated that he was serious this time. Worried, Yunshusher stopped them. Stop fighting. Before she could finish her words, the two men started fighting again. Gao Nan pounced on Huajin like a vicious wolf. Huajin sneered and raised his leg to kick him. Gao Nan nimbly dodged the attack and punched him in the face. Huajin took a step back and, as if he did not feel pain, wiped the blood from the corner of his lips. He stuck out the tip of his tongue and gently curled his lips into a smile. Then, he raised his leg and kicked him in the chest. Chapter 2574. The two men did not use any special moves, but every punch and kick they threw was obviously very powerful. They were swift and fierce, like a tiger eyeing its prey. It was precisely such unorganized punches that were full of murderous intent. However, as the situation progressed, Gao Nan gradually lost his strength. Perhaps it was because Hua Jin's attacks were too ferocious, but Hua Jin had the upper hand despite the two men's equal strength. When a person was enraged to the extreme, they would unleash their greatest potential. Hua Jin looked weak, but his skills were not as weak as he looked. Instead, his moves were ruthless, his eyes bloodshot, and his expression provocative. Their punches were so fast that Unspoken, who was watching from the side, was dazzled. Then, she saw Hua Jin sweep Gao Nan to the ground with a cool kick. He immediately stepped forward and stomped on Gao Nan's chest. Accompanied by the whistling wind, his fists smashed on Gao Nan's face. He did not care that such a murderous move could cripple someone. Unspoken hurried forward and hugged him from behind, refusing to let go. Hua Jin, stop fighting. Stop fighting. Hua Jin's eyes were red. Even when Unspoken stopped him, he continued to kick Gao Nan. Mu Shi, who had just come out of the washroom, screamed in fright when she saw this scene. The waiter, who had heard the unusual commotion, immediately rushed over and stopped the fight when he saw it. Stop fighting. Stop fighting. Soon, the accident alarmed the crew. Ji Yan and several other crew members rushed over and were shocked to see this scene. What are you doing? Ji Yan's face turned pale when she saw Gao Nan lying on the ground. She immediately went forward and helped him up, only to see that his lips were broken and the corners of his eyes were bruised. There were also messy black footprints on his snow-white casual shirt. She quickly understood what had happened and turned to look at Hua Jin and Unspoken. Hua Jin was not much better. His face was a little disfigured, but he was better off than Gao Nan. His lips were broken, but his body was also in a mess. You good for nothing. Hua Jin spat at Gao Nan. As a man, I'm ashamed of you. You're so strong, but you bullied a weak woman. What is this called? This is sexual harassment. Gao Nan, is this all you've got? You can only bully women. You don't deserve to be a man. Gao Nan looked up, his eyes flashing fiercely. What did you say? I said, you don't deserve to be a man. After saying that, Hua Jin smiled wickedly and taunted, did you reincarnate into the wrong body? Feeling humiliated, Gao Nan was about to charge at him with a furious face. Seeing that he was about to rush up again, Unspoken subconsciously stood in front of Hua Jin. Hua Jin was stunned. His eyes flickered a little as he looked at the thin and weak figure in front of him. A group of people immediately stopped Gao Nan, who was about to lose his mind. Ji Yan quickly stopped him. Gao Nan. Don't mess around. I'm messing around? Gao Nan was furious. It's this gigolo who attacked me indiscriminately. Ji Yan was a little surprised and looked at Hua Jin. Everyone also looked at Hua Jin suspiciously. Under their questioning gazes, Hua Jin sneered and said coldly, why did I attack you? Wasn't it all because you took liberties with Unspoken? Everyone, take a good look at this guy's disgusting face. Chapter 2575. That's enough. Unable to bear it any longer, Ji Yan said with a pale face, stop talking. I don't know why you two got into a fight, but what if it's a misunderstanding? The most important thing right now is to treat your wounds first. What if you hurt your tendons and bones? Just as he was about to retort, Ji Yan quickly cut him off. Don't go overboard, Gao Nan. Just give me some face, okay? I'll take you to the hospital now to treat your wounds. Everyone was so scared that they dared not even breathe loudly as they sized up the two men with different expressions. Gao Nan clenched his teeth tightly and glared fiercely at Hua Jin before turning to look at Ji Yan, who had a pleading look on her face. After taking a deep breath for a while, he squatted down, picked up his phone and jacket that had fallen on the floor, and turned to leave. Ji Yan immediately reached out to help him, but he was so angry that he shook her off and said fiercely, "Don't touch me." Ji Yan bit her lip aggrievedly and was stunned for a moment. She then turned to look at Yunshushu and Hua Jin and said, "I'll leave Hua Jin in your care." With that, she hurried to catch up with the man. Unable to quell her anger, Yunshushu glared at the man until she saw Ji Yan pulling him out of the corridor. Only then did she retract her gaze. "Shushu, what's going on?" asked the director worriedly. "It's nothing. I just met a jerk." A staff member immediately asked with concern, "What Hua Jin said just now? Was it Gao Nan who got physical with you?" Yunshushu did not say anything. Feeling embarrassed, she lowered her head with reddened eyes like a child who had done something wrong. Hua Jin glanced at her and reached out to gently stroke her head. "It's okay now, okay? Don't be afraid, I'll protect you." He gently pulled Yunshushu into his arms and comforted her. Yunshushu, however, felt increasingly guilty. Hua Jin was covered in wounds because of her, yet he didn't care about his injuries at all and only cared about comforting her. He blamed himself to no end. Now that things had come to this point, the so-called birthday party would end on a sour note. Yunshushu wanted to send Hua Jin to the hospital, but Hua Jin insisted. "It's just a small injury." Leaving the bar, Hua Jin casually wiped the corner of his lips and stretched out his tongue to trace the blood. He clicked his tongue and said, "That bastard is really ruthless." After saying that, he looked at her nervously and asked worriedly, "Shushu, is my mouth badly damaged?" Yunshushu was both angry and amused. At this point, what he cared about the most was whether or not she was disfigured. "It's not very serious, but, to be cautious, do you want to get stitches?" "There's no need for that, right?" Hua Jin touched it suspiciously. "There's no need for stitches. It won't leave a scar. Stitching is making a mountain out of a molehill." "Then what about your body? The bones aren't broken." "How do you know it's not broken?" Yunshushu was annoyed. "What if it's broken?" "I know whether it's broken or not." Hua Jin casually said, "I used to get injured often, so I'm used to it. As long as it's not disfigured." With that, he pretended to be relaxed and joked, "If it's disfigured, I'll cry. I'm so pretty, wouldn't it be a pity if I'm disfigured?" Chapter 2576. Did this guy get hurt often in the past? Why was it that getting hurt was such a normal thing in his eyes? Hua Jin sensed that something was wrong with her. When he turned around, he saw that she was trying her best to hold back her tears. He couldn't help but feel a little flustered. He walked up to her and bent over slightly. Gazing at her face, he said in a fluster, "What's wrong? Did I say something that made you angry? Don't cry." He frantically wiped away her tears. However, Yunshushu slapped his hand away and stared at him with tears in her eyes. "Idiot." Hua Jin was confused. "Idiot? Big idiot." Hua Jin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. His face revealed a doting yet helpless smile. "What's wrong? Is it worth it to get hurt all over your body?" She sized him up and saw that his snow-white shirt was in a mess. There were bloodstains, black shoe prints, and his cuffs were torn. Instantly, she felt so sad that she couldn't control herself. When Hua Jin heard that, he couldn't help but stare blankly. He silently sized her up for a while. His lips curled into a flirtatious arc as he said plainly, "Why wouldn't it be worth it?" Yunshushu was taken aback. "I said before that I'll protect you." Hua Jin's clumsy expression made Yunshushu smile through her tears, but her tears fell even faster. "What kind of protection is this? If you hurt yourself, my heart will ache. My heart will ache." When Hua Jin heard that, even his heart stopped beating for a few seconds. He was stunned for a long time. Suddenly, there was a bashful and coy expression on his face. He pretended to play it down as he said, "Will your heart really ache?" Yunshusher nodded heavily. All right. I know. Hua Jin tried his best to pacify her. In the future, I won't be so rash. It's just words. You'll be so rash next time. Hua Jin pouted helplessly. Who asked me to be unable to control myself when it comes to such matters? Yunshusher couldn't help flicking his forehead. Ah. Hua Jin frowned in pain. It hurts. Shusher, you're so cruel. I'm already injured like this. You also know that you're seriously injured. Yunshusher immediately said, I'll take you home. Okay. Do you have a first aid kit at home? On standby. Yunshusher felt as if her heart had been pricked by a needle. She said, all right, I'll help you treat your wound. Actually, I can do it myself, you are not allowed to say no. His tone was unyielding, leaving no room for discussion. Hua Jin could not help but feel a trace of warmth in his heart as he quietly said, okay. As Yunshusher had already called Mu Yaja earlier to inform him that she might be late due to an event with the film crew, she did not call to inform him. She drove Hua Jin home. This was the first time she saw the place he was renting. It was a small district away from the city center. It was a simple one-bedroom apartment. It was so small that it even felt cramped. When she walked into the bedroom, she did not even know where to stand. Seeing this, Hua Jin said awkwardly, Based on my ability, this is probably the only place I can afford to rent. How much is the rent per month? About 7,000. So expensive? It's more expensive in the city center. You should still have some savings left. Hua Jin coughed awkwardly. Usually at the airport, when I'm filming, I have to pay attention to my appearance, so I spent quite a lot on my outfit. Indeed.